Chapter 1054. The Dark World was always accompanied by a star. The star of the Dark World was the illusory lotus. However, both the Dark World and the illusory lotus planet were already under Lao Xuantu's control. The Dark World wasn't very big. It was just a star. From the Black Lotus planet, the illusory lotus planet was actually a gray planet. It hung to the south of the Black Lotus planet. It looked like a super gray sun. However, the Black Lotus world didn't have a sun. Right above, it was a Black Lotus. The Black Lotus was larger than any that Sumo had seen before. It gave off a faint black light. However, its roots were entwined by rays of strange gray light. As a result, all of the black light had a tinge of gray in it. At this moment, Sumo and Lao Xuantu were standing at the peak of a mountain. Sumo looked at the Black Lotus and asked, "You control this Black Lotus?" "That's right." Lao Xuantu nodded. "This Black Lotus is the lifeline of the Dark World. I bound its roots and infused my Lysimachia chinensis will into it. That's why I can't control the Dark World. Now, it looks like a dark world, but it's not. Doesn't Heartless know?" Sumo asked. "Hee." Lao Xuantu said, "How could he not know? This dark world is the dark world that he values the most. However, I'm here to guard it, so he won't come easily. I don't think he's willing to face me unless it's absolutely necessary. What's more, he lost Dao's corpse and has to guard Heartless World. He probably doesn't have the time to care about this place." Sumo nodded. "Little Su, my relationship with the Black Lotus World is like the relationship between the illusory Lotus World and the Black Lotus World. Back then, I was the eldest senior brother. I was willing to stand in front of everything. Without me, he wouldn't be where he is now. I just didn't expect that I misjudged Heartless World. He actually wants to bet the entire hidden world." Lao Xuantu sighed. "It's just a different path." Sumo sneered. Perhaps, from the perspective of Heartless, he didn't do anything wrong, because he believed that as long as he was here, Izong would be here. "Oh." Lao Xuantu couldn't help but look at Sumo in surprise. "Hee." Sumo shook her head and laughed. "Don't be surprised. Back then, when I was in the Three Realms, I thought the same. Ants, just listen to my arrangements. However, am I enlightened now? Every life had its own meaning of existence. They should all have the right to choose and not be someone else's puppet. Pity? Heartless may not see as clearly as I do. A lot of things you can only understand after experiencing it." Hee. Lao Xuantu nodded and laughed dryly. Sumo was absolutely right. Heartless was already at the Dharmarian King realm. But Lao Xuantu really couldn't tell. Did he not understand Sumo's words? Or did he understand it too deeply? The two didn't continue this topic. Lao Xuantu brought Sumo directly to a continent on the Black Lotus planet. It was a black continent, looking down from the void. It was in the shape of a lotus. However, there was a layer of gray mist covering the continent. This continent is called the Black Lotus continent. The spiritual energy of the Black Lotus in the void. It goes straight here. It was originally the place where the Black Lotus cultivators were trained. Lao Xuantu pointed at the continent. "However, I've already purified it. Many of your old friends are cultivating here. They were all led here by me." "Oh." Hee. Sumo looked down and saw Han Bingi, Long Xie, Yu Qiumu, Gan Tianqing, Yixing Bai Wuming, Mo Wuhan, and others. They had their own cave abodes on the Black Lotus continent and cultivated separately. "No wonder. I haven't received any news from them," Sumo said. "So, they're all trapped here by you to cultivate?" Hee. Lao Xuantu laughed. "There's no other way. They all have an obsession in their hearts. However, with their cultivation, only death awaits them if they try to find AMU. What if I don't trap them here? I'm afraid they would have become puppets of the Taoist Wu corpse. I just don't want them to die." "Thank you." Sumo cupped her hands at Lao Xuantu. "However, I trapped these people, but one escaped," Lao Xuantu said helplessly. "He's a silver-haired cultivator in white. His physique and cultivation technique are extremely special. Actually, he's not a lotus cultivator yet, but I couldn't trap him. My spells are useless against him. His name is Xing Fei." Sumo smiled with a complicated expression. "His true form is a beam of white light. At the same time, he's an infinite reincarnator. The two rays of light in the vast sea were always unexpected existences. You, a top-notch lotus cultivator, can't trap him. I have a feeling that the cultivator in white is outside of Hao Yu's nomological laws. Lao Shuan said. He. Sumo nodded and said nothing more. Azure Demon and Xing Fei were existences that he couldn't see through. Everything about them seemed to be endless. Little Su, are you going to take a look at the Black Lotus continent? Lao Shuando asked. No need. Sumo shook her head. Let them cultivate here peacefully. The Heartless Realm is a dangerous place. Even you and I might not be able to escape unscathed, let alone them. Lao Shuanda nodded. Then let's get ready to go. Okay, Sumo replied. You should be able to open the door to the Heartless Realm, right? Of course. Lao Shuanda chuckled. Then he made a hand seal in the void. This was the first time Sumo saw Lao Shuanda make a hand seal. She recalled that Sumo really asked him for 3 years of rice in the past. The past was like a dream and ridiculous. The hand seal in Lao Shuantu's hand was the lotus seal. Instantly, his body emitted an endless gray aura. At the same time, a ball of mysterious light lit up between his eyebrows. Within the mysterious light, a black lotus appeared. It seemed that Lao Shuanta could completely imitate an existence like the black lotus. Whoosh, whoosh, there was a sudden fluctuation in the void. It was as if a door of waves had opened. A vortex appeared under their feet. It was filled with black light. The realm gate is open. Little Su, come with me. Lao Shuantu's aura had completely changed. With one step, he stepped into the black vortex. Sumo followed closely behind. The Lotus Scholar realm could be said to be one step into the starry sky. With one step, Sumo followed Lao Shuantu into another dimension, the heartless 3,000 realms. Whoosh! Before, the scenery in front of Sumo had completely disappeared. In front of him, there was an empty, starry sky. However, the starry sky here was somewhat different from the Yizong realm. Although the starry sky of the Yizong realm was empty, it was not cold. However, the starry sky of the heartless 3,000 realms was not only empty, but also cold. Extremely cold. The heartless realm seemed to be a world without any temperature. All the warmth in this world seemed to have been sucked dry by some kind of power. Lao Shuana stood in front of Sumo's left, and the 7 or 8 stars that Sumo could see were all worlds completely covered in ice and snow. Heartless. Heartless. You actually turned this place into this. Lao Shuanta narrowed his eyes. He had not seemed to expect the Heartless Realm to be like this. The moment Sumo and Lao Shuantu appeared in the Heartless Realm, a cultivator on a mountain peak in the Heartless Realm slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was ice-cold. Chapter 1055. The Heartless Realm contains 3,000 lesser worlds. Hence, it is also known as the Heartless 3,000 worlds. This kind of world is not considered big when compared to the Yizong realm. A star zone of the Pure Land realm is already lacking in possessing these lesser worlds. However, the Heartless realm is different from the Yizong realm. Its spiritual energy is extremely abundant, but it seems to be converging towards the center of this world. It has the feeling of 100 rivers returning to the sea. There is an invisible force controlling everything. The Heartless realm of my memory is not like this. Lao Shuanda sighs. What was it like in the past? Sumo asks. The myriad worlds are resplendent, full of vitality. The stars twinkle. The country is prosperous, and the people are at peace. Lao Shuantu says slowly, Heartless is indeed not the Heartless realm of the past. Hee. Sumo shakes her head. The Heartless realm no longer has anyone else in its eyes. In its eyes, there is only itself and the true law. Everything is his bargaining chip. As long as he can open the door to the true law, he no longer has any scruples. The Heartless realm, and even the Yizong realm, are all his tools. Lao Shuana nods his head silently. This world can block our divine sense? Sumo frowns, because he discovered that his divine sense can only extend for about 1,000,000 li. If it is the Yizong realm, with his cultivation of the 7th stage of the Lotus realm, He can completely cover a mid-level world, let alone an existence the size of a star zone. Yes, Lao Shuanta says helplessly, you must know, in this heartless realm, there is a Dharma Lotus Venerable Realm cultivator. Although his position as the Izong Dharma Emperor is not completely recognized, there is no doubt about his heartless realm. Therefore, in this world, our divine sense will be suppressed. Sumo nods her head when she hears this. Little Suzy, it is not a problem if you want to save AMU. However, in this heartless world, every step we take has to be carefully planned and carefully planned. Lao Shuantu says, although the headless Taoist is dead and the black blind man is no match for us, but there must be a top-notch Lotus Knight hidden in the heartless realm. With my understanding of heartless, he won't play all his cards. The headless Taoist and the black blind man are only his forces on paper. There must be hidden experts under heartless. Old Xian. Su Mo felt that this was the most comfortable way to address him. I heard that you had a total of 5 senior Marshall brothers. Besides you, Black Lotus and Green Lotus, what about the other 2? Red Lotus and the Red Lotus. One of them is my 3rd junior brother, and the other is my 4th junior sister. Old Profound couldn't help but let out a long sigh when he heard Sumo's question. Lotus. Red Lotus? Red Lotus? Sumo's heart skipped a beat when she hears the words Red Lotus. Because the Bai Immortal Lotus said that Wu Er once mentioned Red Lotus. Where are they? Green Lotus Seed has already died in the hidden world. Why haven't Hong Lian and Zi Lian appeared despite such a huge commotion? They've been missing for many years. Lao Shuana says, I reckon they've most likely died. Back then, they were very close to me. If they hadn't died, there would be no news of them. Were their realms? Sumo asks again. Millions of years ago, they were all Lotus Knight Stage 7. Lao Shuantu says, among the 5 of us, Junior Brother Green Lotus Seed's realm is the weakest. Out of the other 4, my realm was originally the highest, so naturally Heartless Realm is the highest. How can a Lotus Knight Stage 7 die without a trace? Sumo frowns. Perhaps they're all in this Heartless Realm? Their disappearance must have something to do with the Black Lotus. Oh, Lao Shuantu is slightly stunned, because to them, this might be a hidden world, the only place you can't find. Sumo says, definitely not. Lao Shuantu shakes his head. They definitely won't become heartless minions. Red Lotus and Zillian, they won't disregard the hidden world for the sake of the true law realm. Hee hee. Sumo smiles faintly. Lao Shuantu, your heart is too kind sometimes. A cultivator's pursuit of realms is like a mortal's pursuit of longevity. As long as there's a chance, most people are willing to try and even take risks out of desperation. You're wrong about Heartless Realm, but you might not be wrong about Red Lotus and Zillion. After hearing Sumo's words, Lao Shuantu is speechless for a long time, because an ominous feeling rises in his heart. Actually, he once had the same thoughts as Sumo. After all, Red Lotus and Zillion's disappearance is very strange. It's just that, in his heart, he is unwilling to admit it. Different paths, there's no right or wrong. Sumo takes a deep breath, standing on different standpoints. Sometimes, we can only fight. Peace is usually after war. Lao Shuanta nods slowly. He likes to play games. He doesn't like fighting. However, he naturally understands the logic of Sumo's words. Heartless Mountain is in the center of Heartless Realm. It is a mountain so high that its peak cannot be seen, and its entire body is black. Beyond the mountain is a sea, and the sea is red. Someone once said, Heartless Realm's Heartless Mountain is very similar to White Mountain. It's just that their colors are different, but the layout is very similar. The main peak of Heartless Mountain is naturally Heartless Peak. In addition to the main peak of Heartless Peak, there are 4 other peaks around it. The distance between them and Heartless Peak is in the tens of thousands of miles. Naturally, their height cannot be compared to Heartless Peak. The 5 peaks together form a small world, and this small world is also the existence of the entire 3,000 world of Heartless Realm that has not been frozen. As soon as Sumo and Lao Shuanta enter Heartless Realm, the The male cultivator on the peak facing them opens his eyes. It is a cultivator wearing a red robe. He has long brown hair. His red robe is like blood. However, that male cultivator's face is somewhat pale. It is a kind of sickly white. Lysimachia chinensis. The male cultivator's gaze is cold. It seems that Taoist corpse and black blind were unable to stop Izong. The people from the outside have entered. Heartless realm, you also dare to enter? At this moment, there is a slight fluctuation in the void. A black bird appears in the void. That bird is very unique. Its wingspan is at least 1 zhong. Cat head, fangs, blood eyes. The most unique thing is that it actually has a long tail with a hook. Black catbird. The male cultivator in red was originally sitting cross-legged, but upon seeing the black catbird, he actually stood up and bowed deeply towards the black catbird. Heartless realm Eastern Guardian. He my order. The black catbird actually speaks in human language. Its voice is actually very pleasant to the ear, as if it has a myriad of magical powers. Here is Hong Yi. The male cultivator in red has a solemn expression. The king has ordered. Within the Heartless realm, there is an invasion of otherworldly cultivators. I specially order the Eastern Guardian to lead your 3,000 Red Devil army to fight against the enemy, said the black catbird. What should we do with Lysimachia chinensis? Asked Hong Yi. Kill without mercy. The black catbird's voice is pleasant to the ear and heartless. As you command. Hong Yi once again bowed deeply towards the black catbird. The black catbird is the black lotus spirit beast. The arrival of the black catbird is like the arrival of the king. Without any hesitation, Hong Yi waved his long sleeves and directly went down the mountain. Whoosh! Looking again, 3,000 red clouds directly surged from the mountain peak, following closely behind. Hong Yi going to war is the first time in 10,000 years. On the Heartless Peak, the Black Lotus's heartless voice muttered to himself, Eldest senior brother die, because you have already gone against the will of heavenly venerable Great Lotus. Chapter 1056. The 3,000 Red Devils were the elite troops of the Heartless Realm. None of the Red Devils were Lotus warriors, but they were all at the peak of the 9th level of the Rebirth Realm. In a one-on-one fight, they were naturally no match for Lotus warriors. However, they had a special formation, and this formation in the Heartless Realm was enough to cause great trouble for high-level Lotus warriors. Hong Yi was at the 9th level of the Lotus warrior realm. The 4 guardians were the last guardians of the Heartless Realm. They were even stronger than Taoist Corpse and Black Blind Warrior. Originally, they were only responsible for guarding the Heartless Realm. If Sumo and Lao Xuan had not entered the Heartless Realm, they would not have met them at all. Heartless Realm, Eastern Star Zone. Sumo and Lao Xuan walked among the stars. Their speed was not fast. They did not head straight for the Heartless Peak, but rather explored the way carefully. In the cold, starry sky, their brows were slightly furrowed, because they had passed through a few small worlds, but there were no signs of life. The stars of the Heartless Realm were like cold graves. On many of the stars, there were many ice corpses. Some of them were cultivators, some were mortals. They had all been dead for a long time, and reincarnation was no longer possible. Along the way, Sumo and Lao Xuan both had solemn expressions. In fact, they were both great cultivators who had seen through many life and death situations. However, seeing the scenes in the Heartless Realm, they still felt a great impact, especially Lao Xuan, because, in his memory, the Heartless Realm was not like this at all. If the Heartless Realm was said to be alive in the past, then the current Heartless Realm was dead. Dead cold, dead in despair. A general succeeds on the bones of 10,000 withered. Sumo sighed. Lao Xuan, if the Black Lotus succeeds, will the 10,000 worlds wither? Will the Izong realm become like this? Izong world will only be worse off. Lao Xuan has said, once the Izong world becomes the power that the Black Lotus uses to enter the realm of true law, then it will immediately be annihilated and cease to exist. Sumo frowned. Lao Xuan, what do you think the meaning of our cultivation is? The meaning of cultivation? Lao Xuan has smiled bitterly. To be honest, I've never thought about this. Back then, Perhaps it was for the sake of becoming stronger, for the sake of longevity. Later on, cultivation seemed to have become a kind of habit. After that, I can't even explain it clearly. Cultivation has become a kind of instinct. Hee. Sumo nodded. Actually, for many years I've been like you. In the past, when I was in the three realms, I always wanted to charge out of the seal and grasp the three realms in my own hands. The trajectory of the three realms must be set by me. I want to control everyone's life and death. But I fail. When I reached Dizong, I learned that there is always a sky beyond a sky and a world beyond a world. Moreover, it seemed to be endless. Above the realm lotus, there was still the realm lotus. Perhaps there is another white mountain above the white mountain. Then, does our cultivation seem to have no meaning? Lao Shuana said, because what we can change in the eyes of the higher-level cultivators seems to be a complete joke. They look down on us as if we were ants. No. Sumo looked at the many stars of the heartless realm and shook her head resolutely. Of course our cultivation has meaning. Lao Shuana looked at Sumo without saying anything. The meaning of our cultivation is to use our abilities to give to all living beings, to protect all living beings. Sumo said, give to all living beings, to protect all living beings? Lao Shuanta frowned. That's right. Sumo nodded. We've all said before, all living beings are ants. Conversely, to all living beings, we are all gods. We can split the heavens and earth. We can plant the realm lotus and create our own world. Then, to these worlds, we are the lords of all living beings. All living beings were originally created by us. Then, I should be responsible for all living beings. We should not harvest all living beings, but give and protect. Our relationship with all living beings is like that of a father and a son. Sumo's eyes lit up. These words were his insights from the 10,000 reincarnations of life and death. The meaning of cultivation should originally be like this. Being strong was to protect, especially after losing something. Sumo had not been able to protect the Three Realms galaxy in the past. Phew! Hearing Sumo's words, Lao Shuana let out a long breath of turbid air. Little Su, I'm not as good as you. I'm a Lotus Knight Stage 9, but I'm actually not as thorough as you. Back then, I didn't plant the realm lotus. I didn't care about worldly affairs. Master passed on a hidden world to me, but I was actually too bored and directly threw it to the heartless realm. I only wanted to play around the various worlds, without any worries. Hee. Lao Shuanta laughed self-deprecatingly. Today, I finally understand the meaning of cultivation, to give and protect. I was indeed selfish in the past, but it's not too late. I've lived long enough. I should indeed do something for all living beings. Sumo smiled. In truth, he had also comprehended it step by step. Only after going through 10,000 tribulations could he see the true meaning. Little Su, the people from the Heartless Realm are here. Lao Shuana looked ahead and suddenly raised his eyebrows. His divine sense was stronger than Sumo's. An incomparably powerful force was attacking them. In an instant, Sumo also sensed everything. In the distant space, a red cloud was heading straight for them. The red-clothed cultivator leading, it was actually a Lotus Realm Level 9. The strength of the Heartless Realm had exceeded their expectations. Lao Shuana took a step forward and stood in front of Sumo. His cultivation level was higher than Sumo's after all. When they looked again, the red cloud had already stopped not far away from them. Hongya's long hair and red robes fluttered. The 3,000 Red Devil soldiers behind him were all standing on red clouds and wearing red armor. At the same time, they all wore red masks and held spears of the same color in their hands. Hongyi, Lao Shuanta looked at the red-clothed cultivator and could not help but be slightly taken aback. Lysimachia chinensis, long time no see. Hongyi smiled devilishly at Lao Shuanta. How could it be you? You've actually reached Lotus Realm Level 9? Lao Shuanta said, Where's your master, Hong Lian? Where is he? He. Hong Yi shook his head. One day, you'll be able to see him and meet him face to face. Hong Ye's reply completely confused Lao Shuanta. Lysimachia chinensis. Hong Yi looked at Lysimachia chinensis, then glanced at Sumo. The Heartless Realm is a forbidden area. Since you've come today, you won't be able to leave. I'm here on the orders of the Dharmaraja to take your lives. Hong Yi did not waste any more words. He was a straightforward person. He did not like to waste words, because the more words there were, the more unforeseen things would happen. Red Devil Army, into formation. Kill! Hong Yi waved his hands. The Red Devil Army behind him had already dispersed in an instant. The red clouds beneath their feet tumbled ceaselessly, and there were traces of lotus intent hidden within them. Red Lotus, killing formation. Lao Shuanta raised his eyebrows. That was indeed a formation that could kill high-level Lotus warriors, and it was his third junior brother's unique killing formation. Whoosh! Hong Yi did not say anything else. He flew up abruptly, and 3 red formation flags shot out from his hands, flying straight at Lao Shuantu and Sumo. The 3 formation flags were all top-grade Lianbua. Sumo and Lao Shuantu instinctively moved to the left and right. Hong Ye's pale face showed a hint of red. He smiled evilly. This was exactly what he wanted. The 3 formation flags were planted exactly where Sumo and Lao Shuanta were standing. Whoosh! The dazzling red light spread out like the sea. When Sumo turned around, Lao Shuanta had already disappeared. Chapter 1057. Red Lotus Killing Formation. To Sumo, it was a completely unfamiliar formation. Although Sumo had the windmill inheritance, he was not familiar with the Red Lotus Killing Formation. As he turned around, Lao Shuantu, who was just beside him, had disappeared along with the 3,000 Red Devil soldiers. It was as if they had never appeared. Sumo could not help but raise his eyebrows. Hong Yi was standing not far from Sumo. The starry sky was still the same, but the Red Devil Army and Lao Shuanta were gone. Your formation isolated time and space. Sumo looked at Hong Yi and asked. That's right. Hong Yi still had a devilish smile on his face. Lysimachia chinensis is trouble. So, I sent him into another time and space. The 3,000 Red Devil soldiers are enough to keep him busy for a while. I'll kill you first, then kill him. Hee. Sumo's lips curled up. You're Hong Yi? Heartless World's Eastern Guardian Hong Yi. Hong Yi said. East Guardian? Sumo smiled. It seems that there are 4 guardians under Heartless. That's right. Hong Yi said. Good. Mo nodded. Sumo, don't kill nameless people. Today, you, the East Guardian, will be removed. The other 3 will also be killed in the future. With that, Sumo's figure had already moved. He and Hong Yi were not people who liked to talk nonsense. Everything could be discussed after the battle. Whoosh! Sumo directly punched. Sacred Ancestor Golden Dragon Fist. But in reality, it was the windmill fist of the Windmill 8th senior brother, Han Tian. 1 punch could break the sky. 2 punches could destroy a world. Sumo had once punched out an astral black hole. This kind of fist technique was suitable for Sumo, who currently had the golden body of Dharmaraja. Boom! Sumo's punch directly swept through the starry sky. The entire starry sky was filled with the sound of tearing and shattering. This punch was enough to destroy a few small worlds. The corners of Hong Ye's mouth curled up into a sneer. In his eyes, the Dharmaraja golden body was nothing more than a body of divine power. After all, Sumo was only a 7th-layer Lotus Realm cultivator. She was worlds apart from the real Dharmaraja, revered king. Therefore, Hong Yi did not take Sumo seriously at all. He chose to isolate Lysimachia chinensis and kill Sumo first because, in his opinion, killing Sumo was much easier. Now, many Lotus warriors had entered the arena. The corpse Taoist had already died in the hands of Sumo, and Sumo had already entered the Heartless Realm, so there was no need for them to worry about each other. Killing Sumo was just a small matter to Hong Yi. Bang! Hong Yi didn't dodge Sumo's punch. Instead, he threw a punch at Sumo. It had to be said that Hong Ye's confidence and dominance could be seen at this moment. In Izong world, there would definitely not be a single cultivator who would choose to exchange fists with Sumo. But Hong Yi dared. Sumo's fist glowed with a golden light, while Hong Ye's fist glowed with a red light. Between the stars, they were like two comets, carrying an endless tail of light, colliding with each other. Bang, bang, in the starry sky, spiritual light soared to the sky. Immortal waves rolled back. Heartless realm? Apart from the heartless realm, there was a deathly stillness. However, this great battle seemed to have given birth to a strange life force in the deathly stillness. In fact, this life force was even more destructive. Bang! A white figure and a red figure retreated at the same time. Sumo and Hong Yi retreated at the same time. They felt each other's surging power. Mutual effect? This caused their hearts to tremble. Hong Yi, he was the strongest opponent Sumo had encountered since attaining the golden body. Just now, neither the corpse Taoist nor the black blind monk could withstand his punch. It could be said that if it were them, they would definitely die under Sumo's fist. But Hong Yi caught Sumo's fist. At the same time, Hong Yi also slightly raised his eyebrows. Sumo's strength was still somewhat beyond his expectations. He originally did not intend to retreat from this punch. However, he had to retreat. Hong Yi was the direct disciple of Red Lotus. In fact, he was not only a direct disciple, he also inherited a large part of Red Lotus's power. Otherwise, how could he be at the 9th level of the Lotus Realm? Tens of thousands of years. He had been cultivating hard, preparing to enter the realm of true law. Heartless Realm? Apart from Heartless Realm, even the other 3 guardians would not be able to gain the slightest advantage from him. Hong Yi's nickname was Red Devil. It had been a long time since he met a worthy opponent. Sumo, he was a little surprised. He originally thought that this punch would be able to solve the problem. They were evenly matched. Bang, crack, boom. At this time, the 2 stars closest to Sumo and Hong Yi were directly shattered. Endless interstellar dust spread across the entire galaxy like a great river. Today was destined to be a great battle. Their blood was boiling. This punch made Sumo's and Hong Yi's blood surge. If they could not get past Hong Yi, how could they talk about saving AMU? If they could not kill Sumo, they did not deserve to be the guardian of the East Heartless Realm. Neither of them said a word and directly punched the second time. White clothes with golden light, red shadows with blood. Between the endless interstellar dust, they each dashed out a bloody path, heading straight for each other. Boom, the second punch. Sumo and Hong Yi were like 2 gods fighting in a galaxy. Galactic turbulence, storms rolled. The entire vast universe was roaring and screaming. Sumo's body glowed with endless golden light. His dance sea was surging, and there seemed to be thousands of flames in his chest. He could not be defeated. Sumo's second punch was even more powerful than the first. One punch was more powerful than the previous one. That was the true meaning of Windmill Golden Dragon Fist. Hong Yi's eyes were also slightly red. His second punch was also more powerful than the first. It could be said that he had used more than 80% of his strength. He swore to kill Sumo. Boom! A black hole appeared in the galaxy. It was the result of Sumo's and Hong Yi's combined strength. At this moment, the entire East Star region of the Heartless Realm had begun to collapse. A new black hole was forming. Sumo and Hong Yi retreated once again. They looked at each other and stood between the black holes. Black currents surged under their feet. An endless whirlpool appeared between them. Demon King of the 3 realms, you are worthy to be my opponent. Hong Yi's face was slightly flushed. At this moment, if there were cultivators who were familiar with him, they would be shocked, because it meant that Hong Yi was starting to get serious. Hong Yi, you are not worthy to be my opponent. Sumo smiled faintly. However, you'll be the first 9th level Lotus Realm cultivator to die in my hands. Ha ha ha. Hong Yi couldn't help but laugh when he heard Sumo's words. His long brown hair fluttered in the wind. Demon King, I like your personality. In this world, only the madman can reach the peak. Whoosh! As soon as Hong Yi finished speaking, he separated his hands. 2 large hammers appeared in his hands. They were extremely rare treasures for cultivators. That was because they looked heavier than before. Both hammers were blood red in color. The handles resembled the vines of immortal lotuses, while the heads of the hammers were unbloomed, blood-red lotus buds. The red lotus hammers. They were top-grade divine weapons of Lianbua. They used to be red lotus's treasures. Sumo's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't recognize the pair of hammers, but the aura they exuded was enough to tell him how powerful they were. Sumo died. Hong Yi held the hammers and charged at Sumo like a god descending from the heavens. Chapter 10:58. With Lianbua in hand, it was naturally better than with bare fists. Hong Yi used the Lianbua divine weapon, which was enough to show that he was starting to take Sumo seriously. At the same time, he also wanted to finish the battle as soon as possible. After all, his 3,000 red demons could only hold back Lysimachia chinensis for a while. Even with the Red Lotus killing formation, without Hong Yi, the 3,000 red demons could not kill Lao Xuantu. A quick battle. That was the battle process that Hong Yi had always been pursuing, and it was also the result of the situation. Whoosh! The two giant hammers had the power to destroy the world. It could be said that this pair of hammers had once swept through the entire Yizong world. The Red Lotus hammers could even turn the world upside down in Yizong world. Unfortunately, Sumo did not have a Lianbua that could fight against it, because except for the heaven and earth bag and the soul-concealing cauldron, all of Sumo's Lianbua had been turned into his golden body. Sumo's body was the best of the best Lianbua. Boom! Sumo did not hesitate. He did not have the chance to hesitate either. He suddenly swung his fist, and the third punch directly met Hong Ye's hammers. That was a scene that even Hong Yi found somewhat unbelievable. In theory, even with the golden body, he could not take the Red Lotus hammers head-on. Could it be that as a high-level Lotus Knight, Sumo only knew how to use fists? Hong Yi had some doubts in his mind. No matter how powerful Windmill's fist technique was, it probably could not withstand the Red Lotus hammers. Red Lotus's robe billowed, and the hammers had endless light tails. This time, Red Lotus did not hold back at all. He wanted to smash Sumo to death in one blow. The third punch. Sumo's fist technique was the true inheritance of his 8th senior brother. In the past, he needed more than 10 punches to increase his strength to a certain extreme. Now, Sumo could reach the peak with 3 punches. Sumo's fist was shining with golden light, incomparably dazzling. In fact, among Sumo's Lotus treasures, there were many that could compete with the Red Lotus hammer. At that moment, several phantoms appeared around Sumo's fist. Lotus vines, the Kuin soul blade, the Yin-Yang bell, the blue scorpion divine whip, and the myriad realms azure boat. Apart from the 5 poisons divine steel, almost all of the other Lianbua phantoms that Sumo had fused with appeared. Hong Ye's eyebrows twitched. That is, in that instant, Hong Ye found it hard to believe. It was the manifestation of Lianbua's soul. Bang! Hong Ye did not have much time to think, because Sumo's fist had already collided with Hong Ye's twin hammers. It was a soul-stirring and unimaginable collision. Fist versus Lianbua. Boom! Rumble. Originally, there shouldn't have been any suspense. However, this time, Sumo did not retreat. Sumo stood firmly in the starry sky. Hong Ye's figure retreated dozens of miles. At that moment, Hong Ye felt his arms go numb and his hands hurt. Pain. It had been a long time since he felt pain, because he was a top-notch Lotus warrior, a 9th-level Lotus warrior. But this time, he really felt pain. Hong Ye's face turned redder. But this time, it was not because of excitement, but because of shock. From afar, he could clearly see that Sumo's fist was surrounded by golden light. It was completely unscathed. Sumo's fist was even stronger than the Red Lotus hammer. Sumo's fist had actually met his Red Lotus hammer head-on, and even had the upper hand. This was something Hong you would never have thought of before. You're not an ordinary Dharmaraja golden body. Hong Yi looked coldly at Sumo. How would an ordinary Dharmaraja golden body dare to fight against you? Sumo sneered. You can actually make Lianbua's soul reappear? That's an ability that only Dharmaraja golden body has. How'd you do it? Hong Yi asked. Sumo's eyes narrowed. Guardian Dongfang, don't you think you're suddenly a little too talkative? Hong Yi was slightly taken aback. But Sumo was right. Hong Yi didn't like to talk too much. But at this moment, he was indeed a little too talkative. This meant that Sumo's strength had caused his heart to waver. For a battle of Lotus warriors, it was extremely disadvantageous. Meeting on a narrow path, the brave would win. However, Hong Ye's heart seemed to be shaken. There's no point in talking anymore. Sumo's voice turned cold. Watch me take your life. Whoosh! Sumo took a step forward. Once again, he punched out fiercely. That punch just now, it greatly boosted Sumo's confidence. With his Dharmaraja golden body, he could completely fight against a 9th-level Lotus warrior. The soul of Lianbo that he had conjured just now was something that Sumo hadn't expected. He wasn't an ordinary 7th-level Lotus warrior. So, he wanted to kill Hong Yi in one go. And now, Hong Ye's pupils shrank suddenly. Sumo's strength had indeed exceeded his imagination. But to say that Sumo could kill him, he would rather die than believe it. After all, he was only at a disadvantage just now. Moreover, he had only used the Red Lotus Hammer and hadn't used any techniques at all. Previously, he had always thought that he could kill Sumo in the simplest and most direct way. So, he hadn't used any techniques. He hadn't expected that. He and Sumo had actually fought 3 rounds. Now, he knew that he had to go all out, give it his all. Techniques were the foundation of a powerful Lotus warrior. After all, a Lotus warrior that relied only on his physical body wouldn't exist. Whoosh! Hong Ye's face was blood-red and ferocious. To him, it was an insult that Sumo had fought with him for a few rounds. After all, Sumo was only a 7th-level Lotus warrior. A 9th-level Lotus warrior couldn't kill a 7th-level Lotus warrior. That didn't conform to Hao Yu's rules. Sumo's 4th punch came. Hong Ye's twin hammers were summoned into the air. The twin hammers crossed and fell together, smashing down on Sumo. This time, Hong Ye didn't choose to hold the hammers himself. At the same time, Hong Ye's hands began to form seals. Lotus arts. Whoosh! Looking again, the twin red lotus hammers suddenly burst into a myriad of red flames. The 2 rapidly falling hammers were like 2 volcanoes that suddenly erupted. Boom! They smashed down on Sumo. The red lotus fire could incinerate Lotus warriors. Hong Ye's hand seals changed again. In an instant, he set up a barrier in the air with a radius of 10,000 miles. He wanted to trap Sumo and then incinerate him. Whoosh, whoosh! In an instant, it was a sea of fire. Sumo's fist wind seemed to be drowned out by the sea of fire. After all, the sea of fire was flowing and almost effortless. Hong Yi sneered. This time, Sumo wouldn't be able to escape. The rolling torrent was like a flowing sea of magma. Sumo had completely fallen into the torrent. He probably wouldn't be able to make it. However, Hong Ye's thought only lasted for a moment. Boom! Whoosh! Looking again, the torrent surged and the sea of fire rolled. Suddenly, a beam of white light rushed out of the sea of fire like a white dragon. It was none other than Sumo. The flames couldn't touch her at all. At that moment, Sumo was like a white lotus that flew out of the sea of fire, untainted by a speck of dust. Hong Yi didn't expect it at all. Even if the red lotus fire couldn't completely incinerate Sumo, it shouldn't have no effect on him. However, Sumo wasn't affected at all. He didn't know how Sumo got his golden body of Law Emperor. In fact, Sumo had been refining in the Soul Depository Cauldron for more than 3,000 years. Many Lianbo, Life and Death Tree, White Mountain Heavenly Tablet, and others had become a golden body. He had been personally refined by White Mountain Boy. Not to mention the Red Lotus Fire. Even the flames of the true Law Realm couldn't hurt Sumo at all. Sumo's golden body was already comparable to Heavenly Venerable Great Lotus. Hong Yi, go to hell. Su Mo returned Hong Ye's words to him. At the same time, he had already formed a seal with his hands. Countless forbidden diagrams filled the sky. The sea of fire reversed and went straight for Hong Yi. Chapter 10:59. Pay him back in his own coin. As Sumo's cultivation base improved, the corresponding spell techniques naturally improved as well. As a high-level Lotus Knight, Sumo naturally wouldn't just use fist techniques. Just now, he only wanted to give Hong Yi a false impression. Forbidden Painting, Rotation. Sumo completed the Forbidden Painting technique in an instant and directly change time and space. In fact, the Sea of Fire didn't move. It was just that Sumo's spell placed Hong Yi in the middle of the Red Lotus flame. That was something Hong Yi never expected. His battle with Sumo had caused him too many surprises, and these surprises were constantly escalating. Sumo's forbidden painting could actually reach this level. Hong Yi was surrounded by a sea of fire. The Red Lotus flame was indeed Hong Ye's spell, but that didn't mean he didn't have to worry about it. The Lotus Knight would definitely avoid the Red Lotus flame. At that moment, Hong Ye's face was blood red. No one knew whether it was because of the fire or because of his blood. To Hong Yi, Sumo's spell was definitely a heartless humiliation. Whoosh! Hong Yi instantly made a seal. Fire avoidance spell. All the red flames stopped 3 feet away from him. After all, the Red Lotus flame was his own spell. Hong Yi still had a way to deal with it, but being attacked by his own spell was enough to make him angry. A knight could be killed, but not humiliated. At this moment, Hong Ye's desire to kill Sumo had risen to another level. Looking again, he made a fire avoidance spell. At the same time, a red lotus mark gradually appeared between his eyebrows. At this moment, if the old man was here, he would definitely be greatly shocked, because that red lotus mark should have belonged to the Red Lotus. It shouldn't have appeared on Hong Yi. Red Lotus Seal. Hong Yi silently recited the spell. Whoosh! Looking again, the flames between the stars instantly turned into streams of fire and quickly flowed into the red lotus mark between Hong Ye's eyebrows. At that moment, Hong Ye's face had turned from blood red to deathly pale. His blood red eyes actually started to turn white as well. At the same time, his long brown hair started to turn red. Waves of red air appeared under his feet. Lotus transformation. Sumo couldn't help but raise her eyebrows as she watched. Hong Yi seemed to be turning into another person, and his aura was also changing. The red lotus seal between his eyebrows seemed to seal an unusual power. Demon King, you will die a glorious death. Hong Ye's pale eyes gave off boundless evil as he yelled. Red lotus seal. Open. Bang. When he looked again, a red light suddenly shot out from Hong Ye's forehead. The red light soared into the sky and instantly transformed into a lotus. A huge blood-red lotus floated above Hong Ye's head. The radiance was boundless. As soon as the red lotus appeared, the entire starry sky trembled. The black hole that formed earlier. It seemed like they couldn't completely withstand its power. At the same time, Hong Ye's cultivation seemed to have improved a lot. Peak of a 9th stage of the Lotus Warrior realm. This was already the highest realm below Fahrenheit King. Hong Ye's current realm was even higher than that of Lysimachia Chinensis Lao Xuan II. This scene? It made Sumo's heart clench a little. There was almost a qualitative change between the peak of Lotus Realm and the 9th level. The Red Lotus Seal. At this time, Sumo guessed that Red Lotus might have really fallen. However, his power seemed to have been completely preserved, and this Red Lotus disciple in front of her had inherited his cultivation. Whoosh, whoosh. Hong Yi was like a demon, his long hair flying in anger. The power of a seal, he wouldn't use it easily, because it had a certain backfire effect. He couldn't let Red Lotus use his power to be reborn. Actually, this was Hong Ye's confidence in killing Lao Xuan II. He didn't want to use the power of the seal when killing Sumo. But now, he couldn't do that anymore. Otherwise, he might not be able to kill Sumo. Actually, everything happened in an instant. However, Hong Yi knew that if he delayed any longer, Lysimachia Chinensis might rush out of the Red Demon Army's formation and come back. Whoosh! After opening the seal, Hong Yi flicked his long sleeves. When he looked again, the red lotus above his head suddenly exploded. Countless red lotus petals turned into a rain of arrows, shooting straight at Sumo. They were densely packed and blotted out the heavens and the earth like an endless red lotus meteor shower. At the same time, Hong Ye's hand seals changed rapidly again. Red Lotus, destroy the world. Hong Yi shouted. At the same time, his body emitted an endless surge of power. The barrier he had set up earlier also began to shrink rapidly. With him as the center, the power of a peak Lotus realm suddenly spread out. Countless world-destroying red lotuses instantly appeared in the starry sky. An indiscriminate attack. Han Yi wanted to destroy hundreds of small worlds around him in exchange for Sumo's life. He had already gone crazy. Anyway, the existence of the Heartless Realm? It was for them to accumulate power. If he didn't kill Sumo, he swore he wasn't human. A crazy peak Lotus Realm 9th level was enough to turn a great world upside down. Sumo's brows also furrowed slightly. At this moment, he felt danger for the first time. In the starry sky, red lotuses filled the sky. Violent power. Each of the red lotuses killed a lotus warrior. 5 poisons divine steel appear. Sumo's mind moved. The half of the 5 poisons divine steel appeared above his head. White light shot into the sky and spread outwards. The 5 poisons divine steel came from White Mountain. It was different from Sumo's other Lianbua souls. That white light had the power to suppress all worlds. Because it was originally the existence that suppressed the sea of perfume. The sea-suppressing steel was the one that suppressed the sea, and all the world lotuses grew on the sea of perfume. Whoosh, whoosh. Everywhere the white light shone, the red lotuses were destroyed. Countless bloody lights shot into the sky, but they were devoured and annihilated by the white light of the 5 poisons divine steel. That scene was like the lava of an erupting volcano pouring into the heartless sea, then instantly cooling and solidifying. The power of White Mountain. Han Ye's pale eyes showed a hint of fear, because he really didn't expect Sumo to have the power of White Mountain on her. Black Lotus didn't tell him this information. At that moment, Han Yi felt like he was thrown into an endless black abyss, but he didn't know it before. Whoosh! Vast universe was whimpering. The starry sky was wailing. The red lotus seal was Han Ye's final trump card, but his trump card was crumbling under Sumo's power of White Mountain. But Han Yi had no choice. He could only fight to the death. Dharmaraja, do you want to challenge White Mountain? Or charge up White Mountain? Han Yi thought to himself. Then, Han Yi felt a hint of sadness. Without Black Lotus Heartless, there would be no Han Yi. Black Lotus might be a demon in the hearts of the other Lotus Realm warriors, but in Han Ye's heart, he was a supreme god. That wasn't just out of respect, but also out of love. Everything Black Lotus gave Han Yi. Everything Han Yi had belonged to Black Lotus. Han Yi was willing to die for Black Lotus. If Black Lotus had the desire to charge up White Mountain, Han Yi would follow him to the death. A warrior didn't care about life or death for his bosom friends. Black Lotus was a fanatic in his bones. He liked all kind of crazy things, so he followed Black Lotus. Ha ha ha, ha ha. Seeing his red lotus being devoured by the white light, Han Yi felt an indescribable sense of joy. Dharmaraja, Han Yi is willing to die for your beliefs. Whoosh! The red lotus was about to disappear, but Han Ye's body glowed with endless white light. The paleness in his eyes instantly spread to his entire body. That was Han Ye's final technique. Lotus Fall, return to 1. Han Yi turned into a vast white light and charged straight at Sumo. At this time, Sumo swung his fist again, borrowing the power of the 5 poisons divine steel to charge straight at Han Yi. Boom! Boom! An explosion that affected hundreds of lesser worlds occurred in the starry sky. The eastern region of the Heartless world was almost completely engulfed in an interstellar collapse. The entire 3,000 worlds of the Heartless world was shaking. Wah! Amidst the star explosion, Sumo was sent flying, blood spurting everywhere. His fist smashed Han Ye's head and body into smithereens. A 9th stage Lotus Knight had fallen. On the Heartless Peak, Black Lotus sighed softly. Han Yi, you won't die in vain. Chapter 1060. The process of a lotus blooming and falling was a process from life to death. Many cultivators pursued eternal life, but in reality, there was no such thing in the infinite realms. The so-called eternal life was just that you couldn't see the end. All things had an end. Everything in vast universe would fall. Life and death, countless reincarnations, could only become a Lotus Knight. However, a lotus night would also fall, and it would never come again. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, nothingness to nothingness, nothingness to nothingness. That saying was always correct. In the Eastern Star region of Heartless, Sumo knelt on one knee in the universe. He was panting heavily, and the corners of his mouth were full of blood. In fact, under the white clothes, some parts of Sumo's golden body were already cracked. However, they were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. The golden body of a different Dharmaraja was indeed extraordinary. If it weren't for this golden body, Sumo would have fallen. In the battle with Hong Yi just now, Sumo was on the verge of death. Hong Ye's last technique was similar to self-detonation. He burned everything just to kill Sumo. However, he didn't do it. Hong Yi only gave Sumo a heavy blow, and it was at the cost of his life. Hong Yi was a tragic person. Whoosh, whoosh. In the universe, there was still the sound of the wind. That was the sound of the aftermath of the technique flowing through the universe. The smoke from before was quickly dissipating. However, the entire Eastern Star region of Heartless was almost unrecognizable. In the universe, there were remnants of black holes and space-time cracks. On top of death, there was death. Everything about Hong Yi was silently dispersing. Vast universe was heartless and fair. It wouldn't deliberately remember or preserve any life. Breathe. Inhale. Sumo was already sitting cross-legged in the universe, and then he began to adjust his breathing. Although he killed Hong Yi in this battle, Sumo had used up a lot of his energy. At this time, if another cultivator of Hong Ye's level came, Sumo would definitely die. In front of him, countless forbidden diagrams spread out. Those were Sumo's defensive diagrams. At the same time, Hong Ye's red lotus hammer floated beside Sumo. The top-grade Lianbua divine weapon, Hong Yi, had fallen, but it wasn't damaged at all. Now, it was already Sumo's possession. Lao Shuanta had yet to appear. Sumo had a bad premonition in his heart. At the same time, Sumo had already swallowed the highest-grade lotus-grade immortal pill and was looking forward to a speedy recovery. Theoretically, Lao Shuanta could already annihilate 3,000 Red Devil soldiers. Breathe in. Breathe in. Between the entire interstellar space, other than the whimpering air, there was only the sound of Sumo's heavy breathing. Other than that, it was eerily quiet. Heartless world? It was originally a land of death. Not far from Sumo, a strange shadow gradually appeared. Isn't that a person? Instead, it was a bird. A blackbird. Cat head, fangs, blood eye. It had a wingspan of over 10 feet and a long hooked tail. Black catbird, the divine beast of the Black Lotus heartless world. Its combat power was comparable to that of Hong Yi. At this moment, there was red lightning in its eyes. It stared coldly at Sumo. Now, it was the best time to kill Sumo. It had been waiting for this opportunity under orders. Hong Yi was originally a pathfinder. It opened its mouth, and its fangs were tinged with red. The black catbird shook its wings. It was about to rush towards Sumo. At this moment, Sumo didn't even notice. But, at this moment, a gray figure suddenly appeared in the void. Lysimachia chinensis, Lao Shuantu. The black catbird definitely didn't expect this. Lao Shuantu actually came later? It wasn't surprising that the 3,000 Red Devil soldiers couldn't kill Lao Shuantu. However, the black catbird knew that Wang Zun had also sent the southern guardian Nanxian and his 3,000 blackbird soldiers. Nanxian? He was also a 9th-stage Lotus Knight. He wasn't any weaker than Hong Yi. This kind of power actually allowed Lao Shuantu to return so easily. Impossible. But the black catbird didn't dare to stay. Evil creature. Looking again, Lao Shuantu's eyes were like lightning. At the same time, he pointed at the black catbird with one hand, and a gray light shot out. The power of Lysimachia chinensis. Whoosh! As soon as Lao Shuantu appeared, panic flashed in the black catbird's eyes. Lysimachia chinensis was an existence that it absolutely didn't dare to face. It wanted to rush towards Sumo, but turned around and disappeared into the starry sky. Bang! The gray light shot out by Lao Shuantu exploded at the place where the black catbird disappeared. Gray ripples spread out in the starry sky. The black catbird seemed to have escaped with its life. At this moment, Sumo realized everything. Lao Xuantu, are you okay? Sumo looked at Lao Xuantu. Hee, what can 3,000 red demon soldiers do to me? Not a single one of them is left. Lao Xuantu's eyes were bright, and he was in high spirits. Just like before, he slowly walked to Sumo in his shoes. Are you okay? I'm fine, but I need a rest for a while. Sumo said, Little Su, you really surprised me. You actually killed Hong Yi? It's good that you're okay. I was worried about you before. As he spoke, Lao Xuantu lightly patted Sumo's shoulder. Instantly, Sumo felt a warm current from Lao Xuantu's hand to her body. It was the power of Lysimachia chinensis, which could help Sumo recover faster. It's just a small injury, don't worry. Lao Xuantu chuckled. Immediately after, old Xiantu also sat down beside Su Mo and took out a pot of wine from his bosom. Sumo had seen that wine bottle before. Back then, when they were begging together, Lao Xuantu had that wine bottle with him. However, it was often empty back then. After all, they did not even have enough to eat. How could they drink wine? But now, Sumo knew that the thing on Lao Xuantu must be a treasure. Little Su, that Hong Yi is not easy to deal with, right? Lao Xuantu did not let Sumo and took a sip. Indeed, Sumo nodded. He seems to have inherited the power of the red lotus. That's because he opened a red lotus seal at the end. Sigh. Lao Xuantu wiped his mouth and sighed. I thought of Hong Yi as soon as he appeared. Junior brother Red Lotus must have been harmed by Heartless, and his power was inherited by Hong Yi. Otherwise, with Hong Ye's talent, there's no way he could have advanced to the 9th stage of the Lotus Realm. Heartless, you're ruthless. Lao Xuantu's lips curled as he said coldly. Then, Lao Xuantu took another sip of wine. Little Su, sometimes you'll suffer if you're not ruthless. Lao Xuantu said. That's why I didn't leave a single one of the 3,000 Red Devil soldiers alive. A ruthless look appeared in Lao Xuantu's eyes. Sumo had never seen such a look in Lao Xuantu's eyes before. In Sumo's memory, Lao Xuantu had always been a humorous person. Little Su, if you see Heartless one day, don't show him any mercy. Kill him. Lao Xuantu took another sip of wine. Avenge everyone who died. Junior sister Zillian is most likely dead too. Sumo raised her brows. Little Su, come here. I'll tell you something. Lao Xuantu said mysteriously. Sumo naturally moved closer to Lao Xuantu. This wine pot is for you. Lao Xuantu pushed the wine pot to Sumo and said in a low voice, Little Su, I'll leave everything I have for you. Actually, I killed Heartless Southern Guardian and destroyed his 3,000 Blackbird army. The rest is up to you. I can't take it anymore. Sumo was taken aback. However, Lao Xuantu suddenly raised his head. Puff! He spat out immortal chi and a rain of wine filled the sky, instantly forming a special boundary. At the same time, Lao Xuantu grabbed Sumo's head with one hand. Empowerment! Sumo's expression changed. When she looked at Lao Xuantu again, his face was already pale. His age was visible to the naked eye. The corner of his mouth was full of blood. Lao Xuantu was already heavily injured. Everything just now was actually an illusion. Chapter 1061. The aroma of wine filled the air. That was Lao Xuantu's final Dao technique. It formed a strange boundary between the stars. At this time, even Black Lotus did not discover any traces of Sumo in Lao Xuantu. Lysimachia chinensis' technique was to protect Sumo. The black catbird had already flown back to Black Lotus's side. It landed on a piece of black rock and naturally reported everything it saw to Wu Qing. Lao Xuantu had killed the Guardian of the South, Nan Xian, destroyed the Blackbird army and the Red Devil army, and then retreated unscathed, scaring the black catbird away. That was indeed a surprise to Black Lotus. He knew the strength of Lysimachia chinensis the best. Therefore, the forces he had sent out should have been enough to contend against him. But the results were somewhat out of Black Lotus's expectations. Lysimachia chinensis should not be that strong. And now, he had searched the entire Heartless world, but could not find Sumo or Lao Xuan too. AI. Heartless gave a long sigh. Black cat, you must have been tricked. Master? The black catbird's voice was melodious, but it tilted its head in confusion. Just now, Mighty Shi Xiao must have been heavily injured. He pretended to be calm and scared you away. Heartless said, Fuang, Black Cat does not understand. The black catbird said, Hee hee. Heartless laughed coldly. Previously, they could swagger into Heartless world, but now they have disappeared without a trace. That can only mean that they temporarily do not have the ability to fight. Otherwise, why would they choose to hide? Now, either they have temporarily left Heartless world, or they have set up a special boundary. After Sumo was heavily injured, she definitely did not have the ability to fight. If Mighty Shi Xiao could really kill Nan Xian and the others and still be unscathed, I'm afraid he would have already rushed to Heartless Peak. He does not have that much ability. Nan Xian and his two elites must have made him pay a heavy price. He might not be able to live for long. Eldest senior brother, Heartless said to himself, Actually, I hope that you would die in their hands. Otherwise, I really can't bear to kill you myself. Ha ha! Heartless suddenly threw his head back and laughed. If Lysimachia Chinensis died, Sumo would be severely injured. Then, this battle could be considered a victory for him. After all, he still had a trump card. Profound Cat, pass down my order. Let Western Liang and Northern Dang bring their troops back to the Heartless Peak. Heartless said to Mystic Cat, Give up their territory, but take away all the life force. The mysterious cat has received the order. The black catbird nodded, then spread its wings and disappeared. Heartless sits on Heartless Peak. He raised his head and looked up. So, he was still not at the peak of Heartless Peak. There were layers of clouds on Heartless Peak. This was very similar to White Mountain. Above the clouds, there seemed to be people there, but the clouds on Heartless Peak were black and gloomy. Low pressure. Junior sister Zillian. Heartless eyes flashed with a complicated look. Hope, I don't need you. I want to give Heavenly Venerable Great Lotus a perfect ending. Within the boundary, at this moment, Sumo had been completely restrained by Lao Xuantu. He really did not expect Lao Xuantu to be at the end of his rope. Previously, Lao Xuantu had pretended to be fine and lied to him. Then, he had passed his remaining power to him. Lao Xuantu understood. If he did not do that, Sumo would most likely not agree. And in his current state, the most meaningful thing he could do was to pass everything he had to Sumo. That way, Sumo could recover quickly, and her cultivation level would increase. Sumo could not move. He watched as Lao Xuantu gradually withered like a lotus. Lao Xuantu, Sumo shouted. But, at this moment, there was blood at the corner of Lao Xuantu's mouth. He had a calm and gratified smile on his face. Was he calling out to Sumo? He did not have any response. Heartless had come to this point. He was responsible. So, after coming to the Heartless realm, Lao Xuantu did not plan to go back alive. He had been playing the game for long enough. Sumo was right. They should be the protectors and givers of all living beings. Unfortunately, he could only let Sumo do it for him. Whoosh! Endless gray light came from his hand. Then it completely poured into Sumo's body. The Black Lotus used the power of the Red Lotus. It created the Red Knight. Then Lao Xuantu's death could also help Sumo reach the peak of the Lotus realm. The gray light was endless. Sumo felt a power he had never felt before. It surged like the sea, but was as warm as spring. At that moment, it was as if the power of countless worlds was nourishing Sumo's Dan-Si. His Dan-Si was boundless. Layers of waves rolled and surged, and it even emitted a faint fragrance. Sumo's Dan-Si was like a vast universe. There were countless worlds hidden inside. It was a feeling Sumo had never experienced before. He could no longer call out to Lao Xuantu. He could only close his eyes and accept Lao Xuantu's gift. He directed his chi into the sea and through his meridians. Sumo had the golden body of a Dharmaraja, so he did not need to cultivate it all. It could be said that Sumo was a prepared vessel. As long as there was power, he could accept it. And, inside the world, time seemed to stop. The barrier that Lao Shuanu had set up was extremely mysterious. He turned the rain into a formation, completely cutting off the connection between the heartless world and this place. He wanted to buy as much time as possible for Sumo. Lao Shuantu's body had already begun to turn into a ray of light. All of his power had been transferred to Sumo. Unfortunately, Sumo could not open his eyes. He was completely immersed in a state of cultivation, forgetting about everything else. Sumo, farewell, Lao Shuantu said silently. At the same time, his body began to dissipate. Countless gray lights merged into the barrier. In the end, he completely transformed into a lotus, a gray lotus. That kind of lotus was actually very rare. The gray light was deep and unique. Whoosh! When everything about Lao Shuantu disappeared, leaving only this Lysimachia chinensis, it suddenly flew into the space between Sumo's eyebrows and then disappeared. Everything about Lao Shuantu had been transferred to Sumo. Sumo sat cross-legged in the void. His breathing was already very stable. The wounds on his body had completely healed. However, he had not yet completed the final advancement. At the same time, in another sector of the heartless world, between the stars, two people were standing. One of them was covered in golden light, and his original appearance could not be seen clearly. The other was dressed in silver and had white hair. He was very elegant. The Demon King's aura has disappeared, Xing Fei said. Yes, the swordsman was the first to nod. However, he seems to have hidden on purpose. Just now, he killed the guardian of the east of the heartless world. The cultivators of the three realms are still very powerful. Xing Fei smiled lightly. Of course, the first swordsman said, he is someone who is as famous as the Holy Father Amu. Hee. Xing Fei heard and nodded. So what are we going to do now? Aren't there two guardians of the heartless world? The first swordsman said, how about we each take one? No problem. Xing Fei nodded. However, we can't go to the Heartless Peak. The first swordsman said, if the people of Luo Fan Town don't take action, we can't do it alone. Okay, Xing Fei nodded. Kill them, and let's meet at the southeast of the Heartless Peak. Yes, the first swordsman nodded. Whoosh! Instantly, two rays of light, one gold and one white, rushed to the north and west of the Heartless world. Chapter 1062. Heartless World, West Suppression Peak. Western Guardian Shi Liang wore a white robe and stood at the peak of West Suppression Peak. His features were distinct, and his posture was as straight as a sword. He had already received an order from the Black Catbird to abandon West Suppression Peak and return to Heartless Peak. At this moment, Shi Liang frowned slightly and looked at the entire sector governed by West Suppression Peak. The entire western sector, apart from the area governed by West Suppression Peak, was ice-cold and snow-white. This was because they no longer had any signs of life. However, the hundreds of small worlds governed by West Suppression Peak were still full of vitality. However, they were about to become dead worlds. The Guardian King had ordered them to take away all the life energy here. That life energy was the energy needed to enter the true law realm. Shi Liang already knew that Nanxian and Hong Yi had fallen. The enemy's strength was somewhat beyond Shi Liang's expectations. In Shi Liang's opinion, the four guardians of the Heartless World were almost invincible beings. However, Nanxian and Hong Yi had fallen. The fact that the two guardians had returned to defend Heartless Peak meant that the current situation was not optimistic. They needed to concentrate their strength to deal with the invading enemy. Pass down my order. Shi Liang took a deep breath. Whoosh! A white-robed knight appeared not far away from him. White robes and white armor. He looked valiant and heroic. Beneath him was an extremely handsome, white-furred horse with feathered wings. The horse's neck was covered with a black mane. Yes, sir. Destroy all of Shi Liang. 3,000 Shi Liang soldiers will gather at the foot of West Suppression Peak in 2 hours and set off. Shi Liang's voice was emotionless. Huh? The white-robed knight was clearly stunned. He did not expect such an order. After all, they had guarded the Xiliang world for tens of thousands of years. Nanxian and Hong Yi have fallen. Xiliang sighed. Under the Guardian King's order, we must return to defend Heartless Peak. The white-robed knight was stunned and immediately saluted. Yes, sir. Any cultivator of the Heartless world would probably understand what the fall of Nanxian and Hong Yi meant. Therefore, the white-robed knight did not hesitate. He gently pulled on the reins and disappeared from the spot. Master, will we still enter the true law realm? Xiliang looked at the vast starry sky and muttered to himself. As Heartless disciple, Xi Liang's loyalty to Heartless was unquestionable. However, at this moment, Xi Liang had a bad feeling. Everything they had fought for might not be realized. This was the first time in tens of thousands of years that he had felt this way. Boom, bang, a loud sound rang out in space. Xi Liang stood on the West Garrison Peak and narrowed his eyes. The small world closest to the West Garrison Peak was beginning to be destroyed. His 3,000 Western Liang soldiers were sweeping through the entire Western Liang Star region. Xi Liang stood ramrod straight because he had always prided himself as a warrior. The Western Liang Star region was a territory that he had always guarded. Time was measured in tens of thousands of years. Although he knew that everything here was a preparation for entering the true law realm, but now he had to personally absorb their life force. Xi Liang had mixed feelings. Heartless is his command. However, he couldn't calm his mind. Phew! Xi Liang let out a long breath. Boom! Bang! The second small world was destroyed. Standing on the West Garrison Peak, Xi Liang could see his Western Liang white cloud cavalry shuttling through the various small worlds like clouds. The 3,000 Western Liang white cloud cavalry had always been Xi Liang's pride. However, at this moment, he felt for the first time that their hands were actually stained with the blood of living beings. They were masters of killing. Xi Liang, this is fate. Everything for the king, everything for the true law. Xi Liang muttered to himself. He comforted himself. Then he raised his eyebrows. He began to form seals. Xi Liang formed seals in front of his chest. The power of the 9th level of the Lotus Realm began to spread. Looking again, the West Garrison Peak directly emitted endless white light. Amidst the white light, a huge jade bottle slowly rose up. Below it were all clouds and mist. Xi Liang bottle. That was a top-grade Lianbua. Whoosh, whoosh. Once the Xi Liang bottle appeared, the life force of the entire Western Liang Star region instantly all began to gather towards it. Then it directly poured into the bottle. Boom! Bang! Bang! Between the stars, more and more small worlds began to explode, one after another. They were like fireworks that were detonated one after another, bursting into their final brilliance. Life and death, they were all brilliant. Then, their life force turned into a long white river that surged towards the West Garrison Peak. Xi Liang's expression was already cold. The complex emotions he had just now were slowly dispelling and annihilating. Because he knew why he existed. 3,000 Western Liang White Cloud Cavalry. The White Cloud Cavalry reaped everything. The living beings of the Western Liang Star region, they had no power to resist at all. Of course, they did not feel pain, because they did not know what had happened. The White Cloud Cavalry's technique, they did not even feel anything when they died. Lowly life forms? They were that lowly. Actually, it was also a kind of happiness, because they had never faced the fear of death. Hundreds of small worlds were destroyed one after another. The entire process only lasted for slightly more than an hour. Then, the White Cloud Cavalry began to gather at the foot of the West Garrison Peak. Their leader was the White Knight, who had previously received the order from Xi Liang. He was a 3rd-level Lotus Realm cultivator. Only his white horse had a wisp of long black hair. The horses of the other White Cloud Cavalry were all fine horses of different colors. The White Cloud Cavalry were all at the Supremacy Realm. The 3,000 Western Liang soldiers were far more powerful than the 3,000 Red Devil soldiers of Hong Yi. In less than an hour, they stood neatly at the foot of the West Garrison Peak. White clothes, white horses, solemn and silent. They were like a piece of neatly solidified cloud. Shi Liang did not speak. He looked at his 3,000 white cloud cavalry in silence. He was neither sad nor happy. The Western Liang vase at the top of the West Garrison Peak was still absorbing the life force of Western Liang. But it was almost done. Exactly 2 hours. The white light at the mouth of the Western Liang vase gradually disappeared. At this moment, the entire Western Liang world, except for the West Garrison Peak where they were at, was dead silent. The Western Liang world no longer had its own value. Shi Liang waved his hand. Whoosh! The Western Liang vase shrunk to the size of 7 inches and was kept in his arms. Move out. Our target is the Heartless Peak. Shi Liang did not say anything else because there was no need for it. The Western Liang army was a part of his tens of thousands of years of training. 3,000 Supremacy Realm cultivators and a 3rd-level Lotus Realm cultivator were like the limbs of Shi Liang. They were there as long as Shi Liang was there. At Shi Liang's command, the 3rd-level Lotus Realm cultivator waved the spear in his hand. Whoosh! The 3,000 cavalrymen moved in unison. White clouds appeared under their hooves. It was a formation that could directly transport them to the Heartless Peak. Shi Liang's lips curled into a smile, because he really liked the feeling of leading an army into battle. However, the moment the formation was raised, a white light suddenly appeared at the bottom of the West Garrison Peak. It seemed like it was only a ray of white light, but it instantly filled the sky. Today, none of you can go back. A man in white clothes with his silver hair fluttered in the white light. Chapter 1063. White clothes, silver hair. Xing Fei stood at the foot of the West Garrison Peak, facing Shi Liang. Both of them were dressed in snow-white robes, which made them look somewhat similar. However, Shi Liang did not know Xing Fei at all. Today, none of you can go back. Xing Fei's words were loud and clear, cold and indifferent. In the entire Yizong world, probably no one dared to speak to heartless West Garrison Ambassador Shi Liang like that. The 3,000 white cloud cavalry looked coldly at the silver-haired cultivator in front of them. They looked like they were looking at a dead man. It was simple. All cultivators who dared to speak to Shi Liang in such a tone were dead, without exception. Shi Liang frowned slightly. He actually could not see through the cultivation level of the white-robed cultivator in front of him. To Shi Liang, Xing Fei's cultivation level seemed erratic. Was he a Lotus Knight or not? Shi Liang could not explain it. Xing Fei's aura was very special. It was a sense of detachment that normal cultivators did not have. He seemed to have never cultivated lotuses, because he did not have the lotus aura that normal Lotus Knights should have. However, there was an indescribable power in his body. Shi Liang knew that if he was not a Lotus Knight, the silver-haired cultivator in front of him would not have been able to reach him. However, he could not see through Xing Fei. You are from Fallen Mortal Town? Shi Liang asked in a low voice, because that was the only place he could think of, and it was also the only place where all these strange cultivators would appear. Only people from Fallen Mortal Town can kill you. Xing Fei asked. Shi Liang's brows furrowed when he heard this. However, Shi Liang was not enraged. In fact, he did not feel any anger at all, because he understood that at their level, they would not easily say such arrogant words. The other party must have his own reasons for saying this. I am from the Three Realms Galaxy. Xing Fei said slowly. Today, I am here to collect some interest from the power that once destroyed the galaxy. Three Realms Galaxy? Shi Liang did not speak, but he was shocked. There were 2 Lotus Souls in the Three Realms Galaxy. One, Mu, was sealed under Heartless Peak, and the other, Sumo, had just experienced a great battle. All the other cultivators from the Star River that he knew of were basically in Fallen Mortal Town. Now that things had come to this, the cultivators of Fallen Mortal Town would definitely take action. However, the other party denied that he was from Fallen Mortal Town. How could there be such a special cultivator from the galaxy? However, Shi Liang didn't ask who Xing Fei was anymore, because who Xing Fei was no longer meaningful. The cultivators of the Celestial River and them were destined to not coexist, as they were like fire and water. Get into formation. Kill. At Xi Liang's command, the 3,000 white cloud cavalrymen immediately turned their horses around. Who? The white cloud cultivator, who was a Lotus Realm Tier 3 cultivator, took the lead. Behind him were 3,000 white clouds as he charged towards Xing Fei. Xi Liang, on the other hand, stood still on the spot. Xi Liang was an extremely calm person. He would never underestimate a strange cultivator who dared to come up to the West Garrison Peak. He wanted to see Xing Fei's power and find the best time to strike. White Cloud Killing Array. The cultivator army, under the command of the 4 guardians of the Heartless World, all had their own formations. These formations could kill Lotus Warriors, and countless Lotus Warriors had died to the White Cloud Killing formation. Who? The 3,000 White Cloud cavalrymen had already surrounded Xing Fei in the formation. Each of them emitted a strange white light. The white light had already connected into one. The 3,000 White Cloud cavalrymen were like 3,000 small worlds. Xing Fei stood in the middle. His expression didn't change, and his lips even curled into a smile. I have to say, the Yizong realm is indeed much stronger than the 3 Realms galaxy. Xing Fei said slowly. However, that is only because the level of the world limits our power. Today, I will show you the power of the Celestial River. Kill! Xing Fei shouted, his silver hair flying in the wind. At the same time, the entire White Cloud Killing formation was activated. Venerables naturally couldn't fight against Lotus Warriors. However, the White Cloud Killing formation allowed the power of 3,000 Venerables to completely merge into one. In an instant, 300 White Cloud cavalrymen charged towards Xing Fei. They were in the shape of a long arrow, and the Lotus Realm Tier 3 cultivator was the arrowhead. He held a long spear in his hand, and his power surged. At that moment, his power definitely surpassed that of a Lotus Realm Tier 3 cultivator, and the 100 cultivators behind him completely merged into the white clouds. All the power was gathered on him alone. It looked like he was facing Xing Fei single-handedly. Behind him, there were white clouds that covered the sky. At that moment, his aura was comparable to that of a high-level Lotus Warrior. Even a Lotus Realm Tier 5 cultivator couldn't withstand his attack. But he was facing Xing Fei. Xing Fei's figure moved, and he immediately turned into a white shadow. He was even more elusive than the 3,000 White Cloud cavalrymen. The leading Lotus Realm Tier 3 cultivator originally wanted to directly charge towards Xing Fei. However, when he charged over, he had an indescribable feeling. At that moment, he suddenly felt that the silver-haired cultivator in white who was standing not far away from them didn't exist at all, because he didn't encounter any resistance. Empty. That feeling was as if he had attacked with all his might, but there wasn't even air in front of him. His opponent didn't exist. He had disappeared. Everything that happened just now was like an illusion. The Lotus Realm Tier 3 cultivator was stunned, and then he had a bad feeling. At the same time, endless screams came from behind him. A white shadow moved through the 100 White Cloud cavalrymen, as if there was no one there. The white clouds rolled, but they were waves of blood. Blood-colored waves instantly turned the white clouds red. The sea of clouds turned into a sea of blood. That scene could be described as soul-stirring. The Lotus Realm Tier 3 cultivator's expression changed, because ever since he had led the White Cloud cavalrymen, he had never encountered such a situation. They dominated the Heartless Realm, and occasionally 3 to 5 of them would die. But now, in just an instant, the 300 White Cloud cavalrymen were almost all dead. Xi Liang's face tightened slightly. Xing Fei's strength was somewhat unbelievable to him. Killing nearly 300 White Cloud cavalrymen in one move was nothing. Most importantly, Xi Liang didn't even see how Xing Fei did it. Did he use a treasure or a spell? That was the scariest thing. Anyone would be a little afraid of the unknown, and the Lotus Realm Tier was no exception. White Cloud change. The Lotus Realm Tier 3 cultivator suddenly turned his horse around. The white cloud array had already begun to change. Looking again, 900 white cloud cavalrymen had gathered behind him. The Lotus Realm Tier 3 cultivator's warhorse neighed towards the sky. The other warhorses also neighed. Between the stars, tens of thousands of horses were silent, and their cries shook the vast universe. Countless shadows shot up into the sky. They actually formed a barrier. Inside the barrier, countless white lights suddenly lit up. They were like spotlights, illuminating the entire barrier as if it was connected to the sky. Gods and ghosts couldn't hide from the light of the white clouds. The Lotus Realm Tier 3 cultivator wanted to see Xing Fei's movements clearly. But he was wrong, because Xing Fei was originally a ray of white light. Boom! Boom! Behind the Lotus Realm Tier 3 cultivator, another sea of blood turned, and the waves of blood surged. This time, the murderous intent was even stronger, and the color of blood was even darker. They couldn't stop Xing Fei's slaughter at all. Chapter 1064. It was a massacre. Wherever Xing Fei went, nothing was left. Bai Yunxi, who was at the third tier of the Lotus Realm, really wanted to fight Xing Fei head-on, but he had no chance at all. He could not keep up with Xing Fei's speed. The sea of blood surged, and the 900 white cloud cavalrymen were wiped out in a few moments. The face of the Lotus Realm cultivator turned slightly pale. In those few moments, it seemed like he was chasing Xing Fei, and Xing Fei was killing his soldiers. It was a ridiculous fight, because he couldn't even get close to Xing Fei. On the peak of the Western Garrison Peak, Western Liang was still as straight as a sword. He still didn't move. However, this time, he saw that Xing Fei was using a sword. It was a water-like sword. Unfortunately, Western Liang did not recognize Clear Sword at all. In the past, the Clear Flow Sword was a famous sword of the three realms, but it was only a Paragon Divine armament. Now, it was naturally a top-grade Lianbua. Xing Fei's sword was like water. However, it did not nourish all things, but harvested them instead. The white cloud cavalry collapsed under the clear stream of the sword. Those venerable cavalrymen used to be insufferably arrogant, but now, they didn't even know how they died. 2 hours ago, they were still harvesting the living beings of Western Liang. Now, they were the ones being harvested. The reversal of many things was just so wonderful. The eyes of Bai Yunxi, who was at the third stage of the Lotus Realm, were already bloodshot. Ever since the establishment of the White Cloud Cavalry, they had never experienced such a tragedy. At this moment, he understood that perhaps all of them would die here today. They would not be able to return to West Town Peak. Shi Liang did not attack. However, the White Cloud Cavalry of the Lotus Realm understood that it was not that Western Liang did not want to make a move, but that Western Liang did not have absolute confidence. West Liang was waiting for an opportunity, but this opportunity had never appeared. The Lotus Knight Stage 3 cultivator was well aware of the predicament his side was in. This cultivator, who claimed to be from the Three Realms galaxy, was simply too powerful. Xing Fei was even beyond his understanding. In his mind, the so-called Milky Way was nothing more than a special, inferior world. Who would have thought that the cultivators of this low-level world were currently massacring the White Cloud Cavalry of Western Liang? However, at this moment, they had no choice. There was no way out. More than a third of the 3,000 White Cloud Cavalrymen had perished. A cultivator at the third stage of the Lotus Realm understood. What if he didn't use that final technique? They might not even be able to create a chance for Western Liang. Even if the entire army was wiped out, they would fight to the death. White Cloud, absolute change. A cultivator at the third stage of the Lotus Realm. He tossed the spear in his hand into space and formed a seal with both hands. It was a set of relatively complicated spells. Once, he thought that he would never be able to use that technique. The White Cloud Cavalry under the command of Western Liang swept across the galaxy and was invincible. They had never met a worthy opponent. Even if there had been powerful enemies before, Shi Liang would come down personally to settle everything. But this time, Western Leon didn't. The white cloud killing formation had 3 transformations. The first 2 transformations also contained 7 types of formations. However, Xing Fei didn't give them any chance to change. 1,200 white cloud cavalry? All of them were killed. The last change of the white cloud killing formation was the absolute change. They had never used it before, but they needed it today. Looking again, the Lotus Realm 3rd layer cultivator's technique had already been completed. The white robe on his body suddenly began to turn black. At the same time, he lightly pressed his horse's head. The strand of black mane on the white horse? It changed in an instant, darkening. The remaining 1,800 white cloud cavalry changed as well. The white clouds rolled and instantly turned into black smoke. Except for the Lotus Realm 3rd layer, all the white cloud cavalry disappeared. Because they had all turned into black light, they entered the body of the Lotus Realm 3rd layer. Black robe, black armor, black mask, a black horse. At that moment, that Lotus Realm 3rd layer cultivator, it seemed to come from a bottomless hell. The black horse looked up to the sky and neighed, raising its front hooves and flapping its wings. The darkened Lotus Realm 3rd layer had no more cavalry behind him. This time, he wasn't afraid of Xing Fei killing him. Lotus Realm 9th layer. The darkened Lotus Realm gathered the power of 1,800 venerables, giving him the power of a Lotus Realm 9th layer in an instant. However, this power wouldn't last long. But for a battle of the Lotus Realm, a few moments of improvement could often change everything. However, there were always exceptions in the world. At this moment, Xing Fei stopped moving. He was standing 10 miles away from the darkened Lotus Realm warrior. Just now, he had killed 1,200 venerables. But Xing Fei's white robe was spotless, and every strand of his silver hair was shining. His carefreeness came from his soul. In his hand, there was a clear stream of sword light. That was basically a ray of water light. Whether it was the darkened Lotus Realm warrior or the Western Garrison Peak, they were all extremely shocked by that scene. Just what kind of existence were they facing? Are you ready? Xing Fei looked at the darkened Lotus Realm warrior and asked. His tone was so calm that it made people shiver. Just now, I didn't kill you because I wanted you to feel what despair is. Because the cultivators of the galaxy have felt it before. At the same time, I'll give you a chance to fight me head on. I want you to understand that killing you is as easy as blowing off dust. The darkened Lotus Realm warrior didn't speak. He didn't know what to say. Kill. The darkened Lotus Realm warrior spurred his horse, and a black spear appeared in his hand. The darkened Lotus Realm emissary, who seemed to have come from hell, charged straight at Xing Fei. That was the attack of a Lotus Realm 9th layer cultivator and a Lotus Realm 9th layer cultivator clad in heavy armor. That attack was enough to destroy a mid-level world, and even severely injure a peak Lotus Realm warrior. Xing Fei's expression was calm. He did not dodge. In the instant that the darkened Lotus Realm warrior charged at him, Xing Fei also charged at him. He rose into the air, his silver hair flying in the wind. The darkened Lotus Realm warrior was filled with a black, violent beauty, and Xing Fei was the exact opposite. The darkened Lotus Realm warrior was like a giant axe that could split the heavens, directly cleaving a long black hole in vast universe. Boom! However, in the instant that he collided with Xing Fei, he actually could not move an inch forward. In that instant, he was like a heavily armored knight, bringing with him an endless cloud of dust, but he still forcefully crashed into the ancient city walls. Boom! Black and white light shone everywhere, but the city walls did not budge. The darkened Lotus Realm warrior did not dare to imagine what kind of scene that was. In his final consciousness, there was only endless despair. That kind of despair was indescribable. Xing Fei did not lie. A clear stream of sword light rose into the sky. Thousands of rays of light, like a white rainbow traversing the vast universe. The darkened Lotus Realm warrior's head flew into the air. Even in death, the darkened Lotus Realm warrior did not dare to believe this moment. Boom! Then, the darkened Lotus Realm warrior's physical body suddenly collapsed. The white cloud cavalry of 3,000 venerables had been completely annihilated. And in the instant that Xing Fei killed the darkened Lotus Realm warrior, Western Liang finally made his move. He thought that this was an excellent opportunity, and this was the only opportunity. Western Liang also had no choice. White robes, long spear. In the instant that the darkened Lotus Realm warrior's head flew into the air, it directly pierced through Xing Fei's back. This was the only time in Western Liang's life that he had ever launched a sneak attack. Chapter 1065. A sneak attack. Actually, Xu Liang was proud. He was not the only one. The four guardians of the Heartless Realm were all proud. They had their own principles and dignity. Therefore, they would never choose a sneak attack. But today, Xu Liang chose a sneak attack, because that was his only chance. Xing Fei's power was beyond his imagination. If the sneak attack did not work, then he would not have a chance to kill Xing Fei. Xi Liang's spear was the top-grade Lianbua. That spear had not been used for millions of years, because there was no one worthy of Xi Liang's spear anymore. Puff! Xi Liang moved as fast as lightning. The moment Xing Fei killed the Black Lotus warrior, his spear had already pierced Xing Fei's back. That was smoother than Xi Liang had expected. He had prepared a follow-up move, but he did not use it. He knew that Xing Fei would have to use all his strength to kill the Black Lotus warrior. The moment the sword fell, Xing Fei's defense would be at its weakest. As expected, Xing Fei had no chance to dodge his spear. His back was completely exposed to Xi Liang. The moment the spear pierced him, Xi Liang felt a sense of relief. He had pierced Xing Fei's divine heart. Xing Fei would not survive, but that feeling only lasted for a moment. Boom! Suddenly, he felt that his spear seemed to be locked by an inexplicable force. Xi Liang raised his eyebrows. At the same time, he felt a little dazed. Xing Fei's long hair, which was facing away from him, instantly scattered, turning into endless gray light. Xing Fei's physical body also began to scatter. Wisps of white light began to scatter. At that moment, it was as if the soul of a cultivator whose divine heart had been shattered was beginning to scatter. But Xi Liang could not retract his spear. What was going on? He could not retract his spear. Xing Fei's soul and physical body were scattering in front of him. How do you feel? Just as Xi Liang was puzzled, a calm voice came from not far away. Xi Liang shook his head violently. He looked again and saw a cultivator standing about 10 miles to his left. White robes, silver hair, holding a long sword like water, his expression calm. Xi Liang was so shocked that he could not speak. Huh? Xing Fei looked at Xi Liang and smiled. Just now, you thought you had succeeded, didn't you? Unfortunately, that's just your misconception. How did you do that? Xi Liang asked Xing Fei in shock. He didn't understand. He watched as he stabbed Xing Fei. But how could Xing Fei be unharmed? I told you, I'm from the Three Realms Galaxy. Xing Fei said calmly. In the eyes of the Tibetan cultivators, do you think that the cultivators of the galaxy are all nobodies? If you want to kill him, you can kill him. Xi Liang did not speak, but his silence was equivalent to an answer. That's right. Once upon a time, the cultivators of Yizong had never paid any attention to the Star River, which was a level lower than them. In their eyes, he was an existence at their mercy. I told you, it's just the level of the world that limits our power. Xing Fei smiled. If you were all in the same place, you wouldn't be a match for the cultivators of the galaxy. The ones to be destroyed will definitely be you. What realm are you in? Xi Liang asked with a frown. What realm am I in? Xing Fei smiled. Actually, you should ask me who I am first. Who are you? Xi Liang was a little unsettled at the moment. He actually asked Xing Fei what he said. Xing Fei said, My name is Xing Fei. Some people in the Three Realms call me Divine Punishment. I belong to the ancient flow of the vast seas. Ancient flow of the vast seas? Xi Liang said, You belong to the Three-Realm Lotus Soul AMU. You can say that. Xing Fei nodded. You really want to know why I'm unharmed under your spear and what realm I'm in, right? That's right. Shi Liang couldn't put away his spear yet. He gave up. At this moment, he formed a seal with both hands in front of his chest. It was a defensive seal. Shi Liang thought that he could still hold on for a while in front of Xing Fei. He couldn't kill Xing Fei, but it wouldn't be easy for Xing Fei to kill him either. Seeing him form a seal, Xing Fei didn't say anything. His expression was still calm, because everything that Shi Liang did was meaningless in Xing Fei's eyes. The realm of the world I'm in is my realm, Xing Fei said calmly, so you'll never know my realm. Also, I once said, what did you say? Shi Liang felt his body tighten. Wherever the white light shines, everything can be killed. Xing Fei's pupils shrank slightly. And I am that white light. Kill. Xing Fei moved. Instantly, Shi Liang saw Xing Fei disappear. He really did turn into a ray of white light. It was the light of vast universe. Shi Liang's defensive seal was useless. Puff! Shi Liang felt a slight chill on his neck. That chill was like a cool breeze on a hot summer day. It made people feel comfortable. Then his soul started to dissipate. Everything happened so naturally. Shi Liang didn't even feel pain. Dharma King, Shi Liang can't go back to Heartless Peak. Take care. That was Shi Liang's last thought. Boom! Wherever the white light passed, heads flew and bodies exploded. Dozens of miles away, Xing Fei turned into a human again. In his hand, besides the clear current sword, there was a jade bottle, Shi Liang bottle. Xing Fei looked at Shi Liang bottle and said to himself, the power of these creatures should be sacrificed to the three realms and the galaxy. Izong, the galaxy's revenge has begun. After that, Xing Fei walked toward Heartless Peak without even looking back. Behind him, the aftermath of Shi Liang's death had not completely dissipated. Xing Fei destroyed the entire world of Shi Liang alone. It was as easy as blowing off dust for him. Beidang Mountain. The Beidang realm was the largest second-class realm in the 3,000 realms of Heartless, because it governed 1,000 small worlds. Among the 4 guardian realms, it ranked first. In the past, the Beidang realm was ravaged by demons and monsters. It was not until true Lord Beidang was born that the situation ended. After that, the Beidang realm was named the Northern Guardian of the Heartless Realm by Heartless. At this moment, the Beidang Mountain stood on top of the Beidang Mountain like Shi Liang. The Beidang realm was a middle-aged man in a black robe. He was full of murderous intent. Both the Beidang realm and Shi Liang were disciples of Heartless. However, the Beidang realm was more powerful than Shi Liang. He was the eldest disciple of Heartless. Someone once said that the Beidang realm was most similar to Heartless, cold and cruel. The Beidang realm also received an order from the Black Catbird. After hearing the order, the Beidang realm just frowned slightly and immediately issued another order. At this moment, the power of the creatures in the entire Beidang realm had been collected. The 3,000 Beidang army had gathered at the foot of Beidang Mountain. Whether it was the Red Demon Army of Hong Yi or the White Cloud Cavalry of Shi Liang, they were all neat and majestic. However, the 3,000 Beidang army under the command of the Beidang realm came in all shapes and forms. That was because they were all demons and ghosts. However, at this moment, they were at the foot of Beidang Mountain and didn't move at all. True Lord Beidang stood at the top of Beidang Mountain. If they dared to act rashly, they would be killed immediately. The Beidang realm didn't move, but his pupils suddenly contracted, because he saw a golden light appear 1,000 miles away. Chapter 1066. Thousands of miles away, there was a golden light. Beidang's heart shook slightly, because he felt that the golden light was very familiar to him. In an instant, the golden light enlarged and reached the foot of Beidang Mountain. There was a human figure in the golden light, but no one could see his face clearly. Who are you? Beidang frowned. It's been a long time, immortal Beidang. The voice of the first swordsman came. You are the first swordsman? Beidang was not sure. This was because no matter if it was the corpseless Taoist or the black blind Taoist, they could not enter the Heartless realm without the Heartless King's summons. The first swordsman was a swordsman under Black Blind. So how could he enter the Heartless Realm? Immortal, you have a good memory. The first swordsman chuckled. Back then, in the Heartless Realm, I was hunted by you as a demon. Fortunately, Black Blind saved me once. Hee hee. Beidang looked at the golden light with cold eyes. The first swordsman, in fact, you are still a demon in my eyes, because you never show your true face to others. There must be a demon in hiding. Back then, I only let you off for the sake of Black Blind. Thank you, Immortal. The first swordsman nodded, then shook his head. But today, I won't let you go. Let me go. Beidang couldn't help but laugh. Ha! The first swordsman, do you think you can kill me? If you have that kind of ability, why did you need Black Blind to beg me? Times have changed. In fact, I should thank you for hunting me down, which made me completely awaken, the first swordsman said. Now, I am here, and I can kill you. Beidang's smile gradually disappeared, because through the golden light, he couldn't tell the realm of the first swordsman. Did Black Blind ask you to come? He, the betrayer king? Beidang's voice suddenly turned cold. The cultivators of the Heartless Realm attached great importance to loyalty. Black Blind can't come anymore, the first swordsman said, but he didn't betray the Heartless Realm. You killed Black Blind? Beidang's voice relaxed a little. Death was far more acceptable to him than betrayal. Hee hee. The number one swordsman chuckled and said, I owe Black Blind a favor, so I won't kill him. But I will kill you. Beidang raised his eyebrows. Kill. Beidang gave the order. Who? 3,000 soldiers of the North-slaying demon army rushed to the first swordsman at the same time. Among the four guarding armies of the Heartless Realm, the White Cloud Cavalry of Western Liang had the highest cultivation level, but the North Demon Army was the strongest, because it was truly made up of 3,000 top-tier demons. They were all demons that Beidang had subdued in the past. Each demon was a demon king with profound magic power. The 3,000 demon monarchs came from various small worlds. Now, under the leadership of Beidang, they had already become an invincible demon army. They were of different shapes and sizes, but their cultivation techniques complemented one another. At this moment, the dozens of fiendish demons that were charging at the front all extended their tentacles. Each tentacle was several hundred zhang long. They turned out to be octopus-like monsters, each bearing their fangs and brandishing their claws. In the universe, they were like countless crazed aquatic plants. At the same time, they spat out pale, yellow, poisonous smoke. The demonic mist was thick and heavy. Behind them, there were hundreds of flying birds. However, all the birds were not the same species. The only thing they had in common was that they all had wings. The birds blocked the space above the first swordsman. There were demon soldiers all around. In the void below the first swordsman, there were whale-like demon beasts. Their bodies were huge, but they were covered in scales. Each fish monster could easily shatter a small world. At the outermost layer, there were thousands of flying insects. Most of them were much smaller than other demon beasts, but they blocked all possible escape routes for the first swordsman. Some of their eyes emitted a faint green glow. That was an illusion. Some of their flying monsters even let out ear-piercing screeches. That was a sound technique Dharma spell. Among them, there were two spiders, one white and one black. They separated for hundreds of miles and stood opposite each other, then spat out thousands of feet of black and white poisonous silk. The black and white poisonous silk intertwined and formed a net, sealing the entire world. It could be said that the North-slaying demon army was the most difficult to deal with the Heartless cultivator army. Because they came from different races, they had different characteristics. Some of them even had multiple physical bodies and souls. The method to kill each of them may be different. In the past, even North-slaying spent tens of thousands of years to subdue them one by one. At this time, they swarmed around the first swordsman in a very orderly manner. It was impossible to escape even if you had wings. The first swordsman, you shouldn't have come to the Heartless world. North-slaying stood on the top of the North-slaying peak and smiled coldly. He was very confident in the demon army that he had built over millions of years. They were recognized as the First Heartless Army. At this time, the 3,000 demon soldiers had completely surrounded the first swordsman. North Slaying couldn't even see the situation inside. At this moment, his originally anxious mood had completely relaxed. He knew that he had overestimated the first swordsman. He didn't have to do it himself. After all, the Black Blind Swordsman was only a 7th layer Lotus Warrior. So what if he was the first swordsman under him? The black and white spider's net had been completely formed. Even Liembua's immortal sword couldn't damage that spider web. And the first swordsman seemed to have been forcibly entangled by the octopus monster. The 3,000 demon soldiers were gathering. They seemed to want to grind the first swordsman to death. At a certain moment, North Slaying even thought that after killing the first swordsman, they would immediately return to the Heartless Peak. He really had a lot of things to ask the Heartless Peak face to face. The first swordsman was like a speck of dust that suddenly appeared. It would be fine if he just brushed it away. North Slaying's heart had already flown back to the heartless world. He even wanted to retract his gaze, because he thought that that battle didn't need his attention anymore. His demon army could completely solve everything. However, suddenly his heart and soul tightened. It wasn't because of the battle in front of him, but because he sensed from afar that the soul of a Lotus Warrior in the western Liang Star district of the Heartless World had suddenly dissipated. That was the soul of Western Liang. Western Liang. North Slaying's first reaction was that his perception was wrong. Impossible. However, he didn't have much time to think, because at the same moment, under North Slaying Peak, there was an earth-shattering boom. Suddenly, in the center of the 3,000 demon soldiers, 7 rays of light, red, blue, gray, orange, cyan, white, and black. The 7 rays of light were like 7 long rainbows. They directly blew up and swept away the 3,000 demon soldiers from the inside out. That scene made North Slaying almost unable to believe his eyes. Even he couldn't do that. At that moment, an incomparably powerful 7-colored world instantly exploded in the middle of the demon army. Boom, crack, rumble. For a moment, flesh and blood flew everywhere, and dust billowed. The entire North Slaying Star District was filled with broken limbs, bodies, and heads of the demon army, and then they instantly turned into layers of blood mist. The 7 rays of light scattered like endless rainbow swords. One end of them was under the feet of a cultivator. The 7 rays of light kept dancing and spinning under the feet of that cultivator. It was an extremely gorgeous scene. North Slaying's face was as pale as paper. The 3,000 demon soldiers had been turned into ashes. He saw that the cultivator was wearing a cyan robe, and there was a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. The clouds were calm, and the wind was gentle. That was the eternal Qing Moz. Chapter 1067. The 7 sword lights spun like a wheel. Qing Mozi stood on the sword lights with an indifferent expression. Beidang Star Realm. Before the smoke dissipated, the 3,000 demon army had been completely destroyed. Who are you? True Lord Beidang's face was pale. The power that Qing Mozi had displayed previously had shaken his soul. This was because Qing Mozi had only used one move to destroy the Heartless First Army. Qing Mozi said, "I'm a cultivator of the 3 Realms Galaxy." A cultivator of the 3 Realms Galaxy? At this moment, Beidang had the same thought as Western Liang. Since when did the 3 Realms Galaxy have such a cultivator? If the 3 Realms Galaxy had such a cultivator, it wouldn't have been devoured by the Yizong world. I've said it before. Times have changed. Qing Mozi knew what Beidang was thinking. If I had always been in the Yizong world, how could I have allowed you to act so arrogantly? Hee. Beidang's expression improved slightly. He had calmed down from the shock. Then what's your name? Qing Mozi said. Qing Mozi? Green Devil? Beidang shook his head. He knew a little about the supremacies of the galaxy and the 2 Lotus Souls. However, he had no impression of the name Qing Mozi. After all, the former galaxy was almost not worth mentioning in his eyes. You're not Dharma Lotus Supremacy. You can't cause any waves, Beidang said coldly. Today, although you destroyed my Beidang army, you will still die in the hands of Fa Wang. Qing Mozi looked at Beidang and laughed. True Lord Beidang, I can tell you this. Anyone who thinks that I, Qing Mozi, can't cause any waves will die in the end. None of you will be able to return to the Heartless Peak. I forgot to tell you a piece of good news. Western Liang has fallen. His 3,000 white cloud cavalry was completely annihilated, just like your Beidang army. Beidang narrowed his eyes. However, he didn't doubt Qing Mozi's words at all because he had sensed the fall of Western Liang. The revenge of the galaxy has just begun. Qing Mozi looked around at the endless starry sky. How the Yizong world devours the galaxy will be destroyed. The bitterness of the Star River, for a Tibetan cultivator, is multiplied. However, you Lotus warriors are destined to never be reincarnated. Dream on. Beidang's eyes were about to split open and were filled with malevolence. He could no longer control himself, because his heart was already filled with despair. However, he would choose to die in battle. For him, it was also for his own beliefs. Beidang soared into the sky, his black robe billowing in the wind. Behind him, 7 black long swords suddenly flew out. Each of his swords was 7 feet long. It was a real long sword, the Devil Sweeping Sword. He had once swept across the heartless world with a single strike of his sword. Back then, when Beidang unified the Beidang world, he only needed to use 3 swords at most to settle everything. In the entire heartless world, except for a few important figures, no one knew that Beidang had a total of 7 devil-rinsing swords. In the Yizong world, the Headless Priest and the Black Blind Monk were known as the left and right guardians of the Black Lotus Heartless, but neither of them knew that the Northern Scourge had 7 swords. The 7 swords struck out at the same time. Heartless. They formed a black fan behind Beidang. Beidang was like a black goshawk that suddenly spread its wings. It was majestic and murderous. However, the expression of Qing Mozi, who was standing opposite him, didn't change in the slightest. In his opinion, all of Beidang's actions were meaningless. Beidang didn't think so. It wouldn't be that easy for Qing Mozi to kill him. Even if he died, he would bite off Qing Mozi's flesh. Beidang suddenly raised his arms. The 7 devil-rinsing swords flew directly toward Qing Mozi. Each of them had the power to destroy the world. In fact, this was the first time since Beidang had refined the 7 devil-rinsing swords. He had used all 7 swords at once. It could be said that this time, he didn't hold back and staked everything on this one attack. Beidang understood that if he didn't die, then Qing Mozi would. In the deepest part of his heart, there was still a trace of hope that he could kill Qing Mozi with his swords. 7 lights crisscrossed in space. They directly cut through the starry sky, and endless power caused the vast universe to burn. If other cultivators saw this scene, they would most likely think that Qing Mozi would die without a doubt. This was because the devil-rinsing swords were really too powerful. It must be known that perfected Lord Beidang had never lost a battle in the Heartless Realm. However, Qing Mozi smiled faintly. A Tibetan cultivator is really ridiculous sometimes. Qing Mozi looked at the 7 devil-rinsing swords that were rushing toward him and didn't move at all. With a thought, the 7-colored sword light under his feet directly flew out. Qing Mozi's sword light was different from perfected Lord Beidang's sword light. This was because Qing Mozi didn't have a sword, only sword light, while perfected Lord Beidang had 7 Lianbo immortal swords. In theory, Lianbo was far superior to sword light. However, all theories seemed to be meaningless in front of Qing Mozi. The green and white light seemed to always be outside the laws. The 7 lights rotated. Boom! Crack! The starry sky was dazzling and blurry. Qing Mozi's 7 rays of sword light spun out like a heavenly wheel. Beidang's 7 devil-rinsing swords were like brittle ice hitting an iron wheel. Bang! Pa! The first devil-rinsing sword shattered. The second devil-rinsing sword shattered. The third devil-rinsing sword shattered. The last 7 devil-rinsing swords were all strangled by Qing Mozi's 7-colored sword wheel. There was no exception. At that moment, Bei Dang was completely dumbfounded. He stood at the top of Bei Dang Mountain in a daze, unable to believe what was happening in front of him. This was because he felt that this was the power that only King Falian could have. He was really unable to withstand a single blow from Qing Mozi. Qing Mozi stood in the starry sky, his posture and expression unchanged. Endless vortexes appeared in the starry sky. He needed to consume and dissolve the power of the devil-rinsing swords. Qing Mozi and Bei Dang were only a few dozen miles apart. However, there seemed to be countless small worlds between them that were dying and vanishing. In the starry sky, the clouds rolled and rose. Impossible! Impossible! Bei Dang stood at the top of Bei Dang Mountain and suddenly spat out several mouthfuls of blood. The 7 devil-rinsing swords were his life dharma treasures. They were broken, so Bei Dang was naturally heavily injured. "You are King Falian?" Bei Dang pointed at Qing Mozi, his eyes filled with endless fear and disbelief. Qing Mozi, shook his head and then walked toward Bei Dang Mountain step by step. "I am not King Falian." However, Qing Mozi stopped and looked at Bei Dang. However what? Bei Dang involuntarily took 2 steps back, but he knew that he could not escape. Today, he would die without a doubt. He only wanted to understand a few things before he died. However, King Falian is really nothing. Qing Mozi looked at Bei Dang and smiled gently. "All of you will die, and you will never be reincarnated. King Falian will also die." What? Bei Dang thought that Qing Mozi was crazy. However, Qing Mozi ignored him and only waved his hand lightly. Whoosh! The sky was filled with azure light, directly covering the entire Bei Dang Mountain. It seemed to be a power that Bei Dang had never seen before. Bei Dang soared into the sky, wanting to make a final struggle. However, the moment he rose, he was completely restrained by the azure light. Whoosh, whoosh, he saw the entire Bei Dang Mountain dissipate bit by bit in the azure light, and then his body disintegrated. Destruction, silent destruction. The last to dissipate was his consciousness. In his fear, he completed his death. Qing Mozi's azure robe fluttered, and there was no sadness or joy in his eyes. "Back then, we all died like this in the Xing River realm," Qing Mozi said indifferently. "The instigator must pay double." With that, Qing Mozi glanced at the Bei Dang star boundary. This place had been completely destroyed. Then, Qing Mozi turned and walked toward Heartless Peak. Chapter 1068. Heartless Peak. The Black Lotus Heartless sat steadily on a platform halfway up the mountain. Above his head, there were thick black clouds. There was a fluctuation in the void. The black catbird appeared. "Reporting to Master, the mysterious cat has passed the order. The 2 guardians will return soon." The black catbird's voice was still very pleasant. Heartless nodded. Then, Heartless closed his eyes and began to meditate. From his point of view, the matter of Heartless World could come to an end for the time being. Lysimachia Chinensis had most likely fallen, and Sumo did not have the strength to fight anymore. Once Western Liang and Northern Dang returned, then there would be the first line of defense outside Heartless Peak. He himself would be guarding Heartless Peak. Then it was basically foolproof. As for the people of Fallen Mortal Town, he was not worried, because he already had other arrangements for Fallen Mortal Town. The people of Fallen Mortal Town would probably not be able to come out at all. If everything went according to plan in Fallen Mortal Town, then there would be no resistance to Yi Zhang's purification. One Sumo would definitely not be able to overturn the heavens. At this moment, there was a smile on Heartless' face. Although he had paid a huge price, everything was still under his control. "Sky Sovereign, I will not let you down." Heartless silently said in his heart, "I will definitely open the door to the true law realm, and that day is not too far away." Everything was just around the corner. For that day, Heartless had prepared for too long. For the true law realm, he could abandon anyone. Hong Yi and Nan Xian had already become his abandoned pawns. At this moment, the black catbird folded its wings and obediently lay not far from Heartless' side. At that moment, it was really a pet cat. Heartless relaxed his mind and meditated peacefully. This cultivator and beast were very normal on Heartless Peak. This was also their most normal state. Sometimes they would not move for hundreds of years. Heartless quietly waited for the return of Western Liang and Northern Dang. However, less than 2 hours later, Heartless suddenly opened his eyes. The black catbird shuddered and bared its fangs. Western Liang. Heartless' expression was one of shock as he waved his hand. Whoosh! A water mirror spread out in front of him. The scene of Western Liang was directly displayed in the water mirror. However, he did not see the returning Western Liang army. Instead, he saw a deathly aura. Within the Western Liang realm, dust and smoke billowed and spiritual energy scattered in all directions. It was obvious that a great battle had just taken place there. Shi Liang's aura was dissipating bit by bit. Western Liang had fallen. Heartless could hardly believe what he was seeing. Not only did Western Liang not bring back all the life force, but it was also killed. Who is it? Heartless could not help but shout coldly, his eyes glinting. His divine sense covered the entire Western Liang world. However, apart from the smoke of death and the endless waves of qi, he actually didn't discover anything. His divine sense search was to no avail. At this moment, the black catbird's eyes were emitting a faint green glow. It was Heartless' divine beast. Its spiritual sense was even more powerful than Heartless. However, it also didn't discover anything unusual. Mystic Cat. Heartless asked, Master, Mystic Cat is useless. The black catbird replied carefully. Heartless' eyes twitched when he heard that. Other than Lysimachia chinensis, there was actually someone who could escape his divine sense in Heartless' world. Who was that? Someone from Fallen Mortal Town had come? Impossible. Heartless immediately denied his guess. Because if someone from Fallen Mortal Town had come, it was probably not just a matter of Western Liang falling. The person from Fallen Mortal Town must be pointing straight at Heartless Mountain. It should not be someone from Fallen Mortal Town. However, before the first wave subsided, another wave arose. Hiss, meow. The black catbird rushed in the direction of Beidang Mountain and let out a mournful cry, because it sensed the fall of Beidang. At that moment, Heartless directly stood up. Beidang had fallen. In the direction of Beidang Mountain, endless multicolored light rose. In the multicolored light, the aura belonging to Beidang was also dissipating. An indescribable power engulfed everything. Whoosh! Heartless reached out with one hand. A divine light directly broke through the world and went straight in the direction of Beidang Mountain. The power of the Fa Lien King was enough to break through everything. Boom! Thousands of layers of clouds rolled away. However, what Heartless grabbed back was only a hand of cold mist. There was nothing. The moment he made his move, it was as if all the power had disappeared. Heartless couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, because he had never encountered such a situation before. In theory, Heartless world was still a part of Yizong world. Therefore, in the entire Yizong world, it was impossible to have a power that surpassed him. Because, in a great world, once two Fa Lien King level cultivators appeared, then the world would collapse. There could only be one Fa Lien King in a great world. If there really was a new king, he must step over the corpse of the old king. The peak of the 9th stage of Lotus Night Realm. That was the only power that could kill Shi Liang and Beidang. Shi Liang and Beidang were both his disciples. How high their cultivation base? Heartless couldn't be more clear. Even if it was Lysimachia chinensis, it would not be easy to kill them, let alone kill one and then the other, because he did not have that kind of ability. However, Shi Liang and Beidang had actually fallen one after another. Two people. Heartless immediately reacted. That was two cultivators at the peak of the 9th stage of Lotus Night Realm attacking at the same time, killing Shi Liang and Beidang respectively. Not only did they kill Shi Liang and Beidang, but they also killed without leaving a trace. What kind of existence was that? In Heartless' heart, a huge wave was set off. In the Ezong world, there definitely would not be such a cultivator. Did the people of Luofan Town really come? Taking a step back, even if it was the people of Luofan Town, it was impossible for them to kill Xu Liang and Bei Deng without leaving a trace. Could be by Shan. However, these two places Heartless had his own arrangements. Only Heartless himself knew that everything he did, in fact, was tacitly approved by Baishan. With Baishan's power, it was impossible for him to personally kill his own cultivators. Then, who exactly was it? Heartless' eyes narrowed slightly, his gaze terrifyingly cold. Enemies that could be seen were not the most terrifying. Enemies that could not be seen were the ones that caused people to feel fear. At this moment, without Heartless needing to say anything, the black catbird's spiritual sense had already covered the entire Heartless Mountain world, but it still did not find anything. Taking a deep breath, Heartless gradually calmed down. It seemed that his previous estimate was a little too optimistic. Other than Sumo and Luofan Town, there seemed to be a powerful force that he had always neglected. Hee. Heartless calmed down, then laughed coldly. He was far from being at the end of his rope. Immediately, Heartless raised his head and looked above him. Black clouds rolled like the waves of the sea. Heartless' expression suddenly turned cold. Then he pinched with one hand. Whoosh! A wisp of black cloud was pinched in his hand. Heartless formed a seal with one hand. A rune directly appeared in his palm. Then that wisp of black cloud merged into the rune. Formation! Heartless shouted coldly, then immediately waved with one hand. Whoosh! The sky was filled with Zillion. Then they landed in the periphery of the entire Heartless Mountain world. The demonic Zillion formed a powerful formation. Whoever wanted to enter the Heartless Mountain world would definitely be killed by the Zillion. However, 30,000 miles away from the Heartless Mountain world, a green light and a white light floated in the galaxy, not causing any fluctuations in the formation at all. They were lying in wait. Chapter 1069. However, happiness will always be greater than suffering. I will properly organize the later contents and strive to write the later parts of the story well. I am very grateful to all the friends who have been reading the book and leaving messages. Every word is my motivation. I have seen all of your messages. I will be happy and sad because of your messages. I still owe everyone an update. Once the winter holidays begin, the first thing I will do is to make up for it. I will try my best to write the later parts of the story as rich and exciting as I can. Before the end of the story, I will definitely make up for the lack of updates. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1070. Heartless Starry Sky. The aroma of wine permeated the air. Sumo sat cross-legged within the boundary, oblivious to everything. He had completely forgotten himself and was immersed in cultivation. Lao Shuantu's final boundary completely blocked everything. Neither the Black Lotus nor the Black Cat could detect the existence of this boundary. Lysimachia chinensis had created a real place for Sumo to cultivate. Unless one day, Sumo's realm was complete and he walked out on his own, the Black Lotus would never be able to find him. Lysimachia chinensis's gift could be said to be endless, because that was the last of Lysimachia chinensis's power. Han yet inherited the power of the Red Lotus and reached the 9th stage of the Lotus Night Realm. Lysimachia chinensis could also send Sumo to the peak. Lysimachia chinensis had really entrusted everything to Sumo. The Lysimachia chinensis mark between Sumo's brows had completely disappeared. His realm was constantly rising. Lotus Night 8 tier, Lotus Night 8 tier perfection, Lotus Night 9 tier. A drop of water could hide the ocean, and the ocean could give birth to a world. Lysimachia chinensis had given Sumo countless worlds. His realm was constantly rising, and he had already reached the peak of the 9th stage of the Lotus Night Realm. However, Sumo had not awakened. He was still rising. Inhale, 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 inhale. Sumo's every breath was extremely rhythmic, and the entire boundary seemed to move along with his breathing. Once Sumo woke up, he would definitely point straight to the Heartless Peak. Luofan Town. This town did not belong to the Yizong realm. It was an existence completely independent of the many worlds. In essence, it was above the many worlds, but it was not the true law realm. Luofan Town was an existence between the true law realm and the true law realm. For countless years, Luofan Town had been changing on its own. Nowadays, it seemed that no one in the town could clearly explain its history. Luofan Town used to have several villages, but currently, there were only 5 villages. The other villages have been annihilated over the past tens of thousands of years. Of course, it would also create new villages. For example, the current Galaxy Village. The cycle repeats. The mortal fall is forever. It had always been outside White Mountain, looking up at it. Dongli, Windmill, Duanxiu, Xinghe, Mo Shan, these 5 villages form the current Luofan Town. Among them, East Fence Village had the longest history. At the same time, the few great cultivators of East Fence Village were appointed by Shan as the executors of the multiverse. They wielded divine artifacts to monitor the infinite worlds, possessing the ability to enforce laws that other cultivators didn't have. There was a legend in Fallen Mortal Town that the cultivators of East Fence Village could actually go straight to White Mountain. They possessed the special power bestowed by White Mountain. Of course, no one knew if it was true or not. Every village in Fallen Mortal Town actually had their own secrets. Duanxiu Village used to be an empty village. That was because the 2 monster race patriarchs rarely returned to the village. Other demons were not qualified to enter the village. The history of Duanxiu Village was not as long as that of East Fence Village. However, those 2 patriarchs were absolute patriarchs. The few from East Fence Village also couldn't explain their origins. The Duanxiu ancestor came from an extremely distant era. The people of Fallen Mortal Town all knew that they were hermaphrodites. They were a pair of true demons, mysterious and bewitching. Many years ago, they returned to the village. However, they rarely interacted with the other cultivators in the village. Lung Yu and Gu Xing lived in seclusion, enjoying themselves. However, everyone understood. They definitely didn't return to the village to enjoy themselves. This pair of patriarchs must have sensed something, which was why they returned to the village. Windmill Village was a village that came back from the dead. That was because the former Windmill Village was like the other villages, they had already been destroyed. However, Windmill was reborn again. Within Windmill Village, there was an ancient temple. It was said that was left behind by the first ancestor of Windmill, and Windmill's first ancestor came from White Mountain. That ancient temple was the totem of Windmill. However, no one from the other villages knew what secrets the ancient temple had. However, the fact that the Windmill lineage had collectively reincarnated shocked the entire Fallen Mortal Town. Everyone in the town thought that the Windmill lineage was crazy. However, the relationship between Windmill and East Fence Village had always been good. These 2 villages in Fallen Mortal Town had the closest interactions. Galaxy Village was the last village to form in Fallen Mortal Town. All the cultivators in Galaxy Village came from the Galaxy world. Back then, the first person to come to Fallen Mortal Town was called Mo Lang. He brought his wife and daughter and established a foothold in Fallen Mortal Town. Later on, many Galaxy World experts came to the village. The people of Galaxy Village rarely interacted with the people from other villages. There were many strange runes on the periphery of Galaxy Village. Later on, the people of Fallen Mortal Town came to know that it was called a forbidden map. It was a supreme, celestial technique in the Galaxy world. The forbidden map made the cultivators from other villages shrink back. However, the people of Galaxy Village seemed to be very kind, because they would never pick a fight. Occasionally, they would go out, and they were all polite people. Mozhan Village was the most special existence among the 5 villages. This was because this village had been abandoned for a long time, but it did not die. In Mozhan Village, there was a short mountain. The village was named after it. Its territory was the largest among the 5 villages. Mozhan Village had endless fertile fields. Unfortunately, it had always been abandoned. All the fertile fields were overgrown with weeds, and it was endless barren. In fact, just looking at its appearance, it was similar to the other villages that had been destroyed. However, no one dared to enter Mozhan village, because this Mozhan village had a law emperor-level existence, Black Lotus Heartless. Even though Black Lotus had left the village a long, long time ago, the Black Lotus had left the village. But in Mozhan village, he still left a restriction. Even the few enforcers of East Fence village were not willing to touch Heartless restriction. So Mozhan village still existed, but it was deserted and uninhabited. Other than the 5 villages, there were many special places in Fallen Mortal Town. For example, the remains of some dead villages and some places with mysterious restrictions. Fallen Mortal Town did not seem big, but it could actually be endless. In the center of Fallen Mortal Town, there was a spacious area. It did not belong to any village, but it was a part of Fallen Mortal Town. Usually, there would be a market here every 100 days. The people of the few villages could trade and buy things here. The land of Fallen Mortal had a special meaning in Fallen Mortal Town, because almost everyone who wanted to enter the other villages had to pass through this land of Fallen Mortal. It could also be said that the land of Fallen Mortal was the door to Fallen Mortal Town. The land of Fallen Mortal had White Mountains restriction. Here, everyone was an absolute mortal. Any cultivator's realm would be suppressed. Today was the market day of Fallen Mortal Town. The land of Fallen Mortal was not very lively. However, there were dozens of people coming and going. They were dressed very normally, no different from the people of the secular world. At this moment, 2 figures gradually appeared in the land of Fallen Mortal. It was a pretty girl in plain clothes who was supporting a white-haired old man. They were not from the original village. Uninvited guests. Instantly, everyone in the land of Fallen Mortal focused their attention on them. Chapter 1071. A hidden samsara. As no updates today, will update tomorrow. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1072. Fallen Mortal Town was called Fallen Mortal, because to the people in this town, this was an ordinary world. However, they were still very concerned about the arrival of unfamiliar faces. Fallen Mortal Town. Occasionally, people would come and attract the attention of the people in the town. After all, anyone who could appear in Luo Fan Town was a top-notch existence in the world. The people here actually surpassed the various worlds, but they could not climb White Mountain. Ordinary cultivators could not even touch the border of Fallen Mortal Town. The white-haired old man wore a red robe. He was holding a walking stick in his hand, and he was not walking fast. The girl in linen clothes carried a cloth bag and supported the white-haired old man with one hand. From the looks of it, they were a pair of grandfather and granddaughter. "Grandpa, are we in town?" the girl in linen clothes asked. "Yes." The white-haired old man looked around and nodded slowly. "That's right. We are here. Just a few more miles, and we can return to the village. This road is really far." In a land of Fallen Mortal, there were 7 to 8 stalls and dozens of people. From the outside, they looked like ordinary people. Whether it was for sale or purchase, they were all daily items. Their lives were almost no different from mortals. In Fallen Mortal Town, everyone's daily life was based on the mortal world. Actually, everyone was an almighty, so there was no difference between mortal and immortal. Being mortal became a tacit understanding and rule here. The land of Fallen Mortal was even more special. Here, there was a restriction set up by the almighty White Mountain, so everyone was immortal. They did not have any magic power. This was different from the village. "Sir, are you new here? Look at my 5 grains. Every one of them is delicious." At this moment, a young man selling 5 grains said with a smile. He came from East Fence Town and was a shop assistant of the grocery store owner. "Oh, hee." When the red-haired old man heard this, he could not help but laugh. "If you did not mention it, I would have forgotten. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten. Let's take a look. Let's take a look." As he spoke, the red-haired old man and the girl in linen clothes came to the stall selling 5 grains. There were more than 10 cloth bags on the stall. Inside, there are all kinds of grains and grains of various colors. rice, millet, wheat, water, etc. Good quality? It had everything. The red-clothed old man casually grabbed a handful of golden beans and sniffed them. Then, an intoxicated look appeared on his face. Soon, the wrinkles on his face smoothed out. Good beans. Hee. Of course, said the waiter. I won't hide it from you. The entire Luo-Fan town ate my family's beans. Try some, I'll give you a discount. The entire Luo-Fan town eats your beans. The red-robed old man did not seem to believe it. Of course. The shop assistant laughed. Of course. If you don't believe me, you can ask around. The red-robed old man raised his head and looked around. At this time, another person who was also buying food at the side nodded. Sir, that's right. His shoe dough. It's really good. Most of the 5 grains in Luo-Fan town are from Eastern Fence town. A few people introduced. Actually, they were basically all from Dongli town. Huh. The red-clothed old man nodded with a smile before saying meaningfully, beans from East Fence town? It was indeed good. However, little girl, let's weigh a few caddies of bitter rice. Bitter rice? Hearing the red-clothed old man's words, the few people around him were slightly stunned. A strange look flashed in the eyes of the shop assistant who was selling the 5 grains. Only a few people in the town ate bitter rice. Grandpa, how much do we need? Asked the plain-clothed girl. 9 caddies. The red-clothed old man let out a long sigh. The 2 of us can't eat much. Moreover, we can plan it ourselves when we return to the village. All right. The plain-clothed girl took out a new cloth bag from her bag. Little brother, we want 9 caddies of bitter rice. All right. At this time, the shop assistant had already regained his composure. He hurriedly weighed out 9 caddies of bitter rice from a bag at the back for the plain-clothed girl and put it into the cloth bag for her. Little girl, let's go. Let's go buy some wine and meat. Since we're back, we should celebrate, the red-clothed old man said. Yes, Grandpa. The plain-clothed girl carried the rice and followed the red-clothed old man out of the 5-grain stall. The few people in front of the 5-grain stall looked at their backs. The red-clothed old man and plain-clothed girl walked to the front of the pork stall. Would you like some pork? The person who bought the pork was the butcher from East Fence. Just now, he saw the scene of the red-clothed old man buying rice, but he did not have much of a reaction. After all, his cultivation was much stronger than the shop assistant's. The red-clothed old man looked at the few pieces of pork on the chopping board and frowned. These are your pigs? That's me. The butcher smiled. Sigh. The red-clothed old man shook his head and looked left and right. Unfortunately, he did not find any other pork stalls. What's wrong? Is this meat not to your liking? The butcher asked. It's all right. This meat is a little too earthy. It's not as good as the previous ones. The red-clothed old man did not beat around the bush. Are you the only one selling meat in this town now? The butcher said awkwardly. There's also a pig farmer in Windmill Village. However, he doesn't sell much. He only comes to the market once out of 3 times. If you want to buy, you'll have to wait for another 100 days. Windmill Village, 100 days? That's not a short time. I can't wait any longer. The red-clothed old man muttered to himself. Then he said to the plain-clothed girl, Forget it. Girl, let's have 7 caddies of pork. Please, give me a mixture of fat and lean meat. The plain-clothed girl said, My grandpa doesn't like to eat meat that's too fat or lean. All right, 7 caddies of pork. The butcher did not bat an eyelid. He raised his knife and brought out 7 caddies of pork. Then he wrapped the pork with coarse paper and gave it to the plain-clothed girl. The grandfather and granddaughter left the pork stall and walked directly to the wine stall opposite. The wine seller was a purple-clothed girl. The girl was extremely beautiful. Her hair was tied up in a high bun, and she had a noble air about her. However, she did not feel out of place sitting behind the wine stall. The fragrance of the wine made her even more beautiful. Actually, she had been watching the red-clothed old man and the plain-clothed girl for a long time. After all, this pair of grandfather and granddaughter was really special. Actually, when she first came to the land of fallen mortals, she was also the center of attention. However, their actions back then were definitely not as strange as this pair of grandfather and granddaughter. The rice and meat in Fallen Mortal's town were actually not measured by caddies. "Sir, do you want wine?" the purple-clothed girl asked. "Yes." The red-clothed old man could not help but look at the purple-clothed girl. Then, he asked slowly, "Are you new here? From which village?" "Oh." The purple-clothed girl was stunned at first. Then, she smiled and said, "My name is Wanhua. I'm from Galaxy Village. I've been in Fallen Mortal's town for quite some time." "Sir, you were originally from Fallen Mortal's town?" "Galaxy Village." "Wanhua." The red-clothed old man nodded. "I'm indeed from the town. However, I haven't been back for a long time. I don't know how the village is doing. You, give me 3 caddies of wine first. Not more, not less. I smell that your wine is not bad." "All right." Wanhua did not ask further. She took out an ordinary gourd from beside her and gave the red-clothed old man 3 caddies of wine. Not a single drop was missing. The rice, meat, and wine were all gathered. The red-clothed old man and the plain-clothed girl did not linger in the land of Fallen Mortals for long. They directly left the land of Fallen Mortals town and headed in a direction. In that direction, there was only one village that had already been destroyed, Godly Void. To Fallen Mortals town, that was a ghost village. When Butcher saw this, he could not help but raise his eyebrows. Then he started to pack up his stall and prepared to rush back to East Fence Village. Chapter 1073. Someone had returned from the Divine Void Village. This was a major event for the entire Fallen Mortal town. It was not inferior to the return of the Windwheel lineage at all. However, the Windwheel lineage was a little different from the Divine Void Village. The era when the Divine Void Village was destroyed was a little distant. It was almost as old as the East Hedge. Just now, among the many cultivators in the market, only Butcher seemed to know a little about it. 929, 727, 333. There was a specific meaning behind these numbers. The Divine Void Village was once a rather wealthy village. Its status was somewhat like the current East Hedge. The people of the Divine Void Village sold almost everything: grains, livestock, and so on. It was said that when the Divine Void Village was at its peak, the entire village had 400 people. The Divine Void Village was one of the largest villages in Fallen Mortal Town. That scale was definitely something that the current villages could not compare to. However, at some point in time, the Divine Void Village began to gradually decline. The people in the village walked out of the village one after another and never returned. The concept of the Divine Void Village was extremely vague in the minds of the people of Fallen Mortal Town. Wanhua had never heard of the Divine Void Village. However, she observed the situation, especially when she saw Butcher, who had not finished selling his meat, close his stall. She felt that everything was not simple. As soon as Butcher left, the clerk of the grain store also left. Wanhua also closed the wine stall. In less than an hour, because the people of the Divine Void Village had reappeared in the land of Fallen Mortal, the gathering this time ended hastily. The current few villages were all around the land of Fallen Mortal. Butcher was the first to leave. Then, he did not return to his small farm. Instead, he went straight to the World Observation Lake. Mr. Run did not go to the market today, because he really did not know what he lacked. Sometimes, he felt that the form of the market in Fallen Mortal Town was completely greater than the content. He would rather spend all his time fishing. Butcher began to call out to Mr. Run when he was still quite far away. "Oh!" Mr. Run turned his head and looked at Butcher in surprise. "Why? You didn't go to sell pork today? Or is business especially good today? Why are you here?" "Something has happened," Butcher said. Mr. Run laughed. "What can happen in Luo Fan Town? Could it be that the emissary of White Mountain has come? Even if the messenger of White Mountain is here, I wouldn't be in such a hurry to find you," Butcher said. "Oh." Mr. Wren stopped smiling and asked, "Pig Farmer, what happened?" "Someone from Divine Void Village has returned," Butcher said. "What?" Mr. Run raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying that people from the Divine Void Village have returned?" "That's right." Butcher said, a red-clothed old man and a plain-clothed young girl. They just appeared in the land of fallen mortals and bought rice, meat, and wine from the market. You saw them enter Shinshu village? Mr. Ren asked. No, Butcher said. I just saw them running in the direction of Divine Void Village. However, the way they bought the rice, meat, and wine and the weight were very special. Bitter rice? You want 9 caddies and 2 tails. Meat and wine. 7 caddies and 3 caddies, respectively, right? Mr. Rin said. That's right. Butcher frowned and looked at Mr. Run. Is this the legendary Divine Void number? Yes. Mr. Rin nodded. It seems that the Divine Void cultivators of the past have indeed returned. They came back at this time with ill intentions. Come, let's go find Scholar. Mr. Rin put away his fishing rod and went straight to the World Listening Tower with Butcher. The World Listening Tower was only a few kilometers away from the World Observation Lake. Soon, Mr. Rin and Butcher arrived in front of the World Listening Tower. The bamboo tower was old and had a horizontal plaque on it, World Listening Tower. The words were simple and unadorned, containing Tao runes. On both sides of the lintel was a pair of couplets. Heartless Great Tao, 3,000 doors, World Listening Divine Brush 1 Universe. That was Scholar's handwriting. At this time, it was already past noon. The door of the World Listening Tower was open. Muse was still wearing his slightly oversized green robe and was doing some simple cleaning in the World Listening Tower. For the first time, Scholar was sitting alone in front of the desk, holding a paintbrush and painting. Mr. Wren and Butcher could not help but look at each other. Such days were definitely rare. Muse greets the 2 young masters. When Muse saw the 2 of them, he hurriedly bowed. In the entire East Fence village, the painter, the fisherman, and the pig farmer had a close relationship. Therefore, they directly entered the World Listening Tower. Oh, you're here? Scholar raised his head, as if he was not surprised by their arrival. Instead, he had expected them to come. You know? Mr. Wren asked directly. Yes. Scholar's brush did not stop. He was actually drawing a rather freehand landscape painting. Someone from the Divine Void Village has returned. I heard about it previously. When Mr. Wren heard this, he could not help but laugh. It seems that your World Listening Tower can actually monitor the land of the fallen mortal. Monitor what land of the fallen mortal? Scholar shook his head. Just now, I asked Muse to go to the market to buy some things. In the end, that grandfather and grandson entered the town. I already know the entire process. You know, aren't you anxious? Butcher said from aside. Anxious? What's the hurry? Scholar looked at Butcher and said, the gates of fallen mortal town are always open. In the entire town, there were many people who came and went, and there were many who lived and died. The people of the Divine Void Village can come back if they want. What's there to be anxious about? When Mr. Wren heard this, he could not help but be amused. Scholar, it's easy for you to say that, but didn't you think about it? This Divine Void Village has been empty for countless years. Why do people suddenly come back? Don't you find it strange? That's right. You must know that the decline of the Divine Void Village has always been a mystery. Butcher said, I heard that there was no reason for it to decline back then. Their people left the village on purpose. Scholar said disdainfully. The pig farmer, you said it's just heard. You've only been in East Hedge for a short time. I went fishing much earlier than you did. However, we only heard about it. So, what can we do when the people of the Divine Void Village come back? Scholar looked at Mr. Run and said, fishing. Besides, you're not qualified to be a law enforcer. Back then, when the people of the Windwheel Village came back, you weren't like this. The Windwheel and the Divine Void Village are definitely different. Mr. Wren said, from what I know, the Divine Void lineage is an ambitious existence. They left because they felt that fallen mortal town could not contain them. The Windwheel lineage has no ambition. Scholar said with a smile. The Windwheel lineage has always wanted to fight their way up White Mountain. That's no secret in fallen mortal town. Perhaps it's a normal thing for the people of the Divine Void Village to return. At least, I listened to the worlds and didn't find anything unusual. Fishing, what did you see? When Mr. Wren heard this, He could not help but frown and said, I didn't. However, I have a feeling that things aren't that simple. Let's wait and see. Don't worry, don't worry. I'm prepared. Scholar smiled and added another stroke to his landscape painting. Whoosh! When he looked again, the painting instantly filled the sky with azure light. Scholar, did you prepare this for the Divine Void Village? Mr. Rin looked at the painting. Heh. The Divine Void Ancient Village is already a ruin, Scholar said with a smile. As a leader of Fallen Mortal Town, how can we not give some gifts? My painting has its own universe. If they accept this gift, it won't be a big deal. If they don't accept it, it means that they have ill intentions. Let's wait and see. Uffed. With that said, Scholar spat out a mouthful of immortal chi. When he looked again, the landscape painting flew out of the world listening tower and headed straight for the Divine Void Village. At that moment, the red-robed old man and the linen-clothed youth had just reached the entrance of the Divine Void Village. Chapter 1074. The Godly Void Village was north of the land of the fallen mortal. On the other hand, it was far away from the land of fallen mortality. The outskirts of Godly Void Village were covered in mist. This fog was very special. It almost completely covered the Divine Void Village. However, there was a boundary stone outside the village. On it was written, Divine Emptiness. That tablet, on the other hand, was undamaged. In fact, this was also the case for all the villages that had been destroyed. To Fallen Mortal Town, they were forbidden grounds. However, there must be a boundary stone at the entrance of the village. Usually, the cultivators of Fallen Mortal Town would definitely not come here to stroll around. It was like how mortals would not stroll around a graveyard if they had nothing better to do. Even the people of Luo Fan Town were wary of the ancient village ruins. There is a story behind every annihilated village. Hence, the destroyed village was a special existence to Fallen Mortal Town. The red-robed old man and the linen-clothed girl walked out of Divine Void Village. The red-robed old man looked at the village with a complicated look in his eyes. Sigh. It had been too long. It was barren. It has become barren. The red-clothed old man sighed again and again. Everything from back then is no longer there. Grandpa, is this our village? The plain-clothed girl looked at the direction of the village through the fog. It was dead silent. The entire village was completely barren. There wasn't even the outline of a village here. Weeds, ancient trees, and a gray stream. Apart from that, there were no other buildings. In her imagination, even a few dilapidated houses would be fine. That at least proved that this place used to be a village. However, the plain-clothed girl was a little disappointed. If the red-clothed old man had not said that this place used to be a village, she would not have believed that there was a village here. That's right. This is Divine Void Village. The red-clothed old man sighed, then smiled in relief. I grew up in this village. However, he left in the end. Now, it's good that I can come back. Grandpa, this village is so shabby. Why do we come back? Isn't it good for us to be in the Divine Void world? The cloth-clothed girl said, The spiritual energy, there is no worse than here. Moreover, it's not far from White Mountain. Hee. The red-robed old man shook his head. Little girl, you don't understand. Dharmaraja wants us to come back. Naturally, there was a deeper meaning behind it. What's more, Grandpa's roots were here. I would like to come back. But it's been hard on you. Not at all. The plain-clothed girl hurriedly smiled and said, Where's Grandpa? And there I was. It doesn't matter as long as we enter the village. In less than 3 days, I will definitely take care of everything. Heh. The red-robed old man laughed. It's been hard on my girl. However, we're only the vanguard. Fallen Fan Town was going to be lively. Other villages? I'm afraid someone will come back. And the plain-clothed girl nodded. Let's ignore them for now. Let's stay here first. Thus, the two of them crossed the boundary steel and entered the Divine Void Village. The moment they crossed the boundary stone, the fog outside Divine Void Village began to dissipate. It was proof that someone from the village of Luo Fan Town had returned. Back then, It was the same when the Windwheel lineage returned. However, what was the commotion caused by the return of the Windwheel faction? This was much bigger than the two from Godly Void Village, because they hadn't been gone for long. Almost everyone in Fallen Fan Town knew them. Moreover, the Windwheel 8 had suddenly appeared in the land of Fallen Fan. Then, they entered Windwheel Village in a very high-profile manner. The two from Godly Void Village, they were very low-key. However, the fog dissipated. Everyone in Fallen Fan Town knew that Godly Void Village had come back to life. Broken Sleeve Village. Another village came back to life. Inside the bamboo house, Lung Yu and Gu Xing's bodies were entangled together. They hardly left their houses, but nothing in the outside world could escape their eyes. Fallen Fan Town doesn't seem to be a paradise anymore, Gu Xing said with some resentment. We're back. The people from Godly Void Village are back too. Lung Yu sneered. It seems that those famous villages will have people coming back soon. I hope that which doesn't come back, Gu Xing said. Even we can't stand that lascivious personality of hers. Ha. Lung Yu laughed. If Happy Girl comes back, no one can stop her. However, she can come back, but it's hard to say if she can leave. That's true. Gu Xing's pupils constricted slightly. Everyone thinks that Fallen Fan Town is a paradise, but they don't know that this is the real land of death. Huh. Lung Yu laughed. The show is about to begin. No one can escape from Bai Shan's trap. Windwheel Village. Someone from Godly Void Village had returned. The few from Windwheel naturally received the news. At this moment, around the Windwheel Ancient Hall, the few from Windwheel were scattered. Among them was Bai Lai. He had just returned to Windwheel a few days ago. However, Windwheel was already occupied, so Bai Lai's return did not cause much of a reaction. People from Godly Void Village have also returned. At this moment, eldest senior brother Windwheel still looked like an old farmer, but there was a long pipe in his hand. Haha. Second senior brother, Du Shuxing sneered. They didn't return earlier or later. They came back at this time to restrain us. But there are only two of them. Fourth senior brother's figure was thin. Even sitting there, he seemed thin and weak. He was an expert swordsman, but he did not carry a sword on his back at this moment. Those two are probably just the advanced party, Du Shuxing said. Actually, it's more like a kind of attitude. The people from Godly Void Village don't want us to leave the village. Haha. Bai Yifeng sneered. What's so great about Godly Void Village? If we want to leave the village, who can stop us? Even the enforcers of the eastern border can't stop us. Haha. Bai Lai laughed. Little Bai is right. However, even though Godly Void Village is nothing, their return definitely represents the attitude of the power behind them. You must know that many of the villages in Fallen Mortal Town have Dharma Lotus Venerables behind them. Godly Void Village represents a Dharma King, and we have to face the power of a Dharma King. After all, our Windwheel doesn't have a Dharma King. Bai Yifeng raised her eyebrows and did not speak, because Bai Lai was right. The Windwheel lineage was known as lunatics, but they were not boorish people. If there was really a Dharma Lotus Venerables standing outside Fallen Mortal Town, then even if they could leave the village, they would have to pay a huge price. Little junior brother, if you don't have to worry, we can stay in the village. Eldest senior brother took 2 deep puffs of a cigarette. If little junior brother is in danger, then we must go down to the lower realm at all costs. Little junior brother, this is our bottom line. Eldest senior brother knocked his pipe and stood up. Let's go back to our own houses and look at our own world. Old Bai, stay here and watch the ancestral hall. Without my permission, none of you are allowed to leave Fallen Mortal Town. Do you hear me? Seventh sister? In the Windwheel lineage, second senior brother was in charge of most matters. Eldest senior brother rarely expressed his views personally. Today, eldest senior brother acted out of character, and everyone understood that this was a serious matter. Don't worry, eldest senior brother. Bai Yifeng lowered her head and replied. However, she thought to herself, I can make a trip to Godly Void Village even if I don't leave Fallen Mortal Town. Chapter 1075. Divine Void Village. The moment the red-robed old man and the linen-clothed girl entered the village, the entire village changed. When the red-robed old man stepped in, not only did the mist dissipate, but also the decay and desolation. Whoosh! The red-robed old man looked at the dissipating desolation and could not help but smirk. Lotus Knight, Ninth Realm. The word follows law. Thought creates life. The red-robed old man waved his hand, and a red light instantly filled the entire village. The desolation dispersed, but the ancientness remained. Although the entire village was ancient, it was full of life. The green grass was lush, and a small stream gurgled. In the distance was an endless expanse of fertile farmland. Nearby was a neat row of ancient houses. In front of the ancient houses was an ancient well. The windlass on the ancient well was still there, and there was a row of bamboo racks beside the ancient well. It looked like they were probably grape racks or gourd racks. Hee. The red-robed old man laughed. Girl, it started to feel a bit like how it used to be. Grandpa. The linen-clothed girl hurriedly stopped him. Leave the rest to me. If you do all the work, what can I do? Aha. All right. The red-robed old man nodded with a smile. The easternmost ancient house was my former residence. You can stay in the one next to it. Grandpa, which house did the Dharmarajas stay in? The linen-clothed girl asked. The Dharmaraja's house is the one furthest west. The red-robed old man said. Then can I stay in that house? The linen-clothed girl asked. Huh. The red-robed old man laughed and nodded. Of course. Back then, the Dharmaraja was the first to leave the village. Later on, there were people who cultivated in that house. However, there was only one Dharmaraja. I don't want to become a Dharmaraja. I just want to stay in the Dharmaraja's house. The linen-clothed girl ran straight for the Dharmaraja's house. The red-robed old man walked to the ancient well. The water in the ancient well was like a mirror reflecting one's figure. He was old and gray-haired. He was no longer a youth. The red-robed old man looked at the reflection in the ancient well and could not help but sigh. Time. I left home at a young age and returned with white hair. The old things are still there, but I am no longer human. If it's possible, my bones are willing to be buried here. The red-robed old man looked up at the divine void village, filled with emotion. Whoosh! At that moment, a seven-colored light suddenly rose from the void. Then, the scenery outside the godly virtual village suddenly changed. Originally, one could see White Mountain in the distance from the divine, illusionary village. However, it was as if someone had covered another world outside the godly void village. In the distance, the smoke condensed into a patch of faint purple. Nearby, the bamboo forest was picturesque, green, and glistening. There was even a small river outside the village. The river was clear, and there were even water birds playing on it. Beyond the mountain, there was still a green mountain. Beyond the village, there was another village. The scenery was picturesque. The red-robed old man's eyes narrowed slightly. Law enforcement barrier. Grandfather. At this time, the plain-clothed girl had just come out of Dharmaraja's ancient house. She looked up and couldn't help but be stunned. Grandpa, didn't I tell you not to cast any more spells to change it? Leave the rest to me. The plain-clothed girl actually didn't see that the entire village was covered in a barrier. The red-robed old man shook his head. Silly girl, that was not grandfather's doing. The mountain you see is not a mountain, and the water is not water. Someone set up a barrier outside the godly void village. What? The plain-clothed girl's expression changed when she heard that. Who dares to do that? In Fallen Mortal Town, every village is equal. Why did someone set up a barrier when we came back? That's a law enforcement barrier. The red-robed old man smiled and waved his hand. Girl, don't be angry. We haven't been back for too long. If we suddenly return, it will definitely make people suspicious. In Fallen Mortal Town, there are White Mountain enforcers. They can use the name of White Mountain to restrain all living beings in Fallen Mortal Town. If I'm not wrong, this law enforcement barrier must have originated from the realm listening divine brush. If we obediently stay in Fallen Mortal Town, this will be a scenery. Moreover, it can protect us. If we make any strange movements, it will transform into a realm listening, killing formation. Realm listening, killing formation? The plain-clothed girl said. Yes. The realm listening, killing formation can destroy a ninth-stage Lotus warrior. The red-robed old man said. That's the power that White Mountain gave to the enforcers. Ordinary Lotus warriors have no power to resist in front of the enforcers. That's because they have the will of White Mountain on them. Then, the plain-clothed girl wanted to say something but stopped. The red-robed old man smiled meaningfully at the plain-clothed girl. Girl, decorate our village well. Enforcers will accept this great gift. As he spoke, the red-robed old man shouted towards the void. Divine Void Village's Jiangfeng has brought his grandson, Jiangning, back. I hope that the enforcers will take care of us. After we've tidied up the village and cleaned up the house, we'll pay you a visit. The red-robed old man's voice almost spread throughout the entire fallen mortal town. He knew that the person who wielded the realm listening divine brush would definitely be able to hear it. Cut Sleeve Village. The red-robed old man's voice naturally did not escape Lung Yu and Gu Xing's ears. Jiangfeng? Gu Xing frowned. Who's Jiangfeng? Was there such a person in Divine Void Village? Hee. Lung Yu used her hand to scratch Gu Xing's nose. Why not? Did you forget that when he was young, he wanted to peek at us bathing? Gu Xing concentrated and thought, then came to a realization. Jiangfeng, Li Jiangfeng, the child who looked wooden when he was young, but was actually full of evil tricks. That's right. Lung Yu nodded, then sighed. That's him. In the entire fallen mortal town, there are probably only the two of us who know his background. It's really been too long. Li Jiangfeng is not an ordinary cultivator. Gu Xing smiled coldly. Realm Listening Tower. The scholar had been holding the Realm Listening Divine Brush. After he sent out his painting, it became a boundary formation. As long as the red-robed old man showed any signs of resistance, he was prepared to directly suppress him. However, the red-robed old man did not show any signs of displeasure. Hee. The scholar looked at Mr. Ren and Butcher and laughed. Now, you can rest assured. Those who should fish, those who should rear pigs should rear pigs. There won't be any big trouble in Fallen Mortal Town. Butcher and Mr. Ren both looked at the scholar with distrust in their eyes. Thus, the two of them did not speak. I think I'd better go rear pigs. Butcher turned around and left. I'd better go see if there's anything wrong myself. Mr. Ren turned around and prepared to leave as well. Angler, don't just look at Guanxi Lake. That by Yifeng has a violent temper. My painting most likely won't be able to stop her. The scholar shouted. Mr. Ren listened and nodded. Mr. Ren and Butcher both left. The scholar's expression instantly became serious. He opened one hand, and an ancient book appeared in his hand. Realm Listening Law Enforcement. Many fallen mortal cultivators only knew that the scholar possessed the Realm Listening Divine Brush, but they did not know that he also had the Fallen Mortal Ancient Book. In the Fallen Mortal Ancient Book, every cultivator who had lived in Fallen Mortal Town was recorded. Jiangfeng, Li Jiangfeng. He was bloodthirsty and vicious. He was the last person to leave the Divine Void Village. He was known as the number one person below the Law King in the Divine Void Village. Seeing this, the scholar could not help but take a deep breath. This Li Jiangfeng was an old fox. He would definitely not obediently submit to his spirit formation. Chapter 1076. Night fell. Smoke could finally be seen in the Divine Void Village. The red-robed old man, Li Jiangfeng, and the plain-clothed girl, Li Jiangning, were cooking a pot of bitter rice porridge and roasting 2 large pieces of spirit pork in front of the old house. The taste of bitter rice was really bitter. However, the fragrance permeated the air as the rice was cooked. The 2 pieces of spirit pork sizzled as they were roasted, and the aroma filled the entire old house. Grandpa, I'm actually a little hungry. Li Jiangning stuck out her tongue and laughed. She was a stage 6 Lotus scholar. How could she be hungry when she drank dew and wind on a daily basis? Li Jiangfeng laughed. Girl, bitter rice smells fragrant and tastes bitter. You'll probably not feel hungry after a few mouthfuls of porridge later. Is bitter rice really that bitter? Li Jiangning asked curiously. She had never eaten bitter rice before, because it was a specialty of Luo Fan Town. Of course, bitter rice is known as the most bitter among spirit foods. That bitterness is actually a type of poison. In all the realms, only Lotus Scholars can eat bitter rice, because cultivators below the level of Lotus Scholar cannot withstand the poison at all. However, it's a good tonic for Lotus Scholars. Li Jiangfeng explained patiently. Eating bitter rice often can increase one's cultivation. Then I'll try it. The porridge was done. Li Jiangning took out a wooden bowl and scooped herself half a bowl of porridge, then blew on it lightly. The porridge was slightly cold, and Li Jiangning carefully took a small sip. She had been looking forward to it, because the bitter rice's aroma was simply too strong. However, she only took a small sip before her expression changed. Without a doubt, that was the most bitter spirit food she had ever eaten in her life, bar none. The bitter rice was simply too bitter. Li Jiangning's expression immediately turned bitter. Grandpa, Li Jiangning pouted, then pushed her bowl in front of Li Jiangfeng. Clearly, she did not want to drink anymore. Huh? Li Jiangfeng could not help but laugh when he saw this. Girl, that won't do. You have to finish the porridge you scooped yourself no matter what. I suggest you eat it in one mouthful. It'll taste better. Oomph. When Li Jiangning saw that her grandfather didn't take her bowl, she pouted and took it back, then picked up a piece of spirit pork. However, she still had no appetite as she looked at the fragrant bitter rice porridge. She was really not hungry anymore. Li Jiangfeng smiled, then picked up his own bowl, filled it to the brim with bitter rice porridge, and directly drank it. When he drank, his face was filled with intoxication. It looked like he and Li Jiangning were not in the same pot of porridge. The porridge in his bowl seemed to be sweet. Grandpa, isn't your porridge bitter? Li Jiangning asked. It's tough. Li Jiangfeng laughed. Then why do you drink with relish? I feel like you're drinking too much. Li Jiangning said. Little girl, our porridge is the same. Li Jiangfeng said slowly. Actually, I was the same as you back then. I felt that the bitter rice porridge was too bitter. Although it is indeed a good spirit food, and it is cheap, I am not willing to drink it. But it's different for me now. Is it because your realm is higher? Li Jiangning asked. No. Li Jiangfeng shook his head. Because after I walked out of the village, I discovered that there are simply too many things that are more bitter than eating bitter rice. Although bitter rice is bitter, we can still endure it. In the worlds, there are actually many hardships that we cannot endure at all. Therefore, when I came back to eat bitter rice, I learned that there is sweetness in this bitterness. To be able to eat bitter rice porridge in peace in the Divine Void Village is actually a great blessing. Who knows how many cultivators who left the Divine Void Village want to come back to drink a bowl of bitter rice porridge, but they can no longer. They have all fallen. Li Jiangfeng looked at the night sky of the Divine Void Village and sighed deeply. Li Jiangning looked at Li Jiangfeng in a daze. Grandpa, I understand. As he spoke, Li Jiangning lowered his head and forced himself to eat the half bowl of bitter rice, bite by bite. Then he took the empty bowl. Grandpa, look. Good girl. Li Jiangfeng nodded with a gratified smile. This granddaughter was his flesh and blood. In front of Li Jiangning, no one would feel that Li Jiangfeng was a demon who killed without batting an eyelid. A pot of bitter rice porridge, 2 pieces of spirit pork, and half a pot of wine. The bitter rice tasted good, but Li Jiangfeng did not think highly of the spirit pork. Therefore, Li Jiangning volunteered to raise a pig. Li Jiangfeng clapped his hands in praise. The pigs of a Divine Void Village were well raised to begin with. Behind the ancient house, there was a special pigsty. This wine is really good. Li Jiangfeng tore a mouthful of meat and drank a mouthful of wine. The wine of the Galaxy Village, Li Jiangning said. Li Jiangfeng smiled and said, Girl, we are actually here for the windmill and Star River. Dharmaraja does not want them to leave the village. But when I taste this wine, I know that there is an expert in the Galaxy Village. Li Jiangfeng took a sip of wine, then smacked his lips. It will be difficult to keep them from leaving the village. Good wine proves that there is an expert. Li Jiangning did not understand his grandfather's theory. Of course, Li Jiangfeng nodded. Actually, at the level of us Lotus warriors, everything is connected to the spirit. Everything is cultivation. Look, in the entire fallen mortal town, everyone calls themselves mortals. In fact, everything they did was for cultivation. Farming, raising pigs, weaving, buying and selling, everything is cultivation. If you stay here for a long time, you will naturally improve. To be able to brew wine to this level, one must have reached the Lotus opening realm long ago. That is not something an ordinary Lotus warrior can do, Li Jiangfeng said. The people of the Galaxy Village are not simple. But I saw that the woman who bought the wine was noble and beautiful, but she did not seem that powerful. Li Jiangning said, her level seems lower than mine. She probably did not brew the wine alone. Li Jiangfeng said, looks like I really have to go to these villages if I have the chance. Get a feel of the situation. Yes. Li Jiangning nodded. At that moment, Li Jiangfeng suddenly frowned and put down the wine gourd. Girl, we have guests. Li Jiangning was slightly stunned, because she did not sense anything. However, not far from their old house, there was a female cultivator in a blue dress standing at some point. That female cultivator was beautiful, but her expression was cold. Where are you from, esteemed guest? Li Jiangfeng did not move as she looked at Bai Yifeng with a smile. Windmill Bai Yifeng. Bai Yifeng announced, going straight to the point. Hee. Li Jiangfeng nodded. Is indeed Miss Bai. Actually, the moment you appeared, I guessed it was you. How so? Bai Yifeng asked. Right now, there's a law enforcement boundary protecting the Divine Void Village. Although this boundary is a kind of shackle to us, it is also a kind of protection. Li Jiangfeng's expression was calm as she spoke with assurance. I think ordinary cultivators in Fallen Mortal Town would not be able to enter the law enforcement boundary. I heard that Miss Bai the Windmill lineage is proficient in formations. I think you're the only one who can enter my Divine Void Village so easily. Old Sir Jiangfeng is right. Bai Yifeng smiled coldly. What advice do you have for coming here tonight, Miss Bai? Li Jiangfeng said. I don't have any advice. Bai Yifeng said, I just want to ask, is your return related to the Heartless Black Lotus? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.